What is going on, you guys? Hit that like button on your way in. Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. Missed a day, and it happened to be a day after a weekend, so it feels like I haven't done this in forever. It's like I have to relearn how to do all this. We are streaming on Twitter again, finally. I'm going to have the Dark MAGA profile picture for a while because it's such a pain in the ass having to have your whole, I'm paying for Twitter to be able to get access to all the different features, and to lose those features while I'm still paying it was unacceptable. Definitely noticed a tick down in the interactions, by the way, for what it's worth. If you're trying to figure out how to navigate the platform, the impressions definitely took a hit when I was missing the blue check for having changed my profile picture. I understand why they got to do it. I understand that. I get the rationalization for wanting to maintain some sort of authenticity or security or that sort of thing. So if somebody changes their profile picture, they could have it changed to who knows what, and they don't necessarily want to promote that until they've verified that it's something legit. I understand. It's still a pain. It is stupid. I should at least get like a credit back on what I'm paying for the month for having it down for like 5 days or something. Anyways, but we are back live on Twitter, on X. It feels more right to call it X when I'm streaming there. Like streaming or doing a space on X seems more natural, but then like when it's just like a post, it's not a post on X. That just I'm never going to get used to that. What's up, Picanyones in the chat? NFBP, that's right. NFBP, no fucking black pilling. We're gonna talk a little bit about the black pilling here later on. I've got some stories that'll be appropriate for that. I do love who was it that said it? I want to give credit here. Euthanasia. It says astrolabians rise up. My wife in the chat says she refuses to be called an astrolabian. It's good to be back. I wanted to do the show yesterday, and it just wasn't going to happen. I came down. Whole family had a cold, and I woke up yesterday morning, face just full of snot. It was terrible. I don't want to get too grody here for you guys, but so there was just no way it was going to happen. I could hardly see straight, and then had a dentist appointment in the afternoon. My teeth have been in bad shape for a while now. I think my dad has bad teeth. I think it's something that just kind of runs in the family, and I haven't taken great care of them for the last several years. So I got the great news that I have 2 root canals that we're going to be getting scheduled. So pray for your boy here. I honestly, the root canals were kind of good news because I sort of expected to just lose the teeth. They're bad enough. They've chipped pretty badly. Both of them have, and I just expected. It's like, whatever. I'll have a gap in my teeth for a while, or I'll come up with 10 grand for an implant or something, whatever. So hearing the news of a root canal, I don't want root canals. I prefer not to have a root canal. But I'll take that over just simply pulling the teeth. If she thinks she can try to recover the teeth, then I'll take it. Buck Johnson had hiccups for 24 hours. What the hell? I would much rather have 2 root canals that have hiccups for 24 hours. That would be maddening. I don't know. So seems like some people hiccups are really annoying too, and other people they aren't. Some people it just like it makes them lose their mind, and I'm one of those people. It drives me freaking insane when I have hiccups. Too much Zen. Oh, speaking of, thank you, Cooper, for reminding me. All right. Now the show can get started. We got 39 watching, 40 on YouTube. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We're up to 17 so far. Let's get off get to a good start here. So what do we got? We got Gab versus the FBI. We've got Weird. We've got Kamala versus Vance. We've got the Counter Elite, and we've got Network State. So I've got a crap load of stuff here. That's part of the reason why I'm so late getting started this morning was so many stories I had to try to go through, so many things I'd bookmarked and planned on reading over the weekend and never wound up reading. And and then more stories are piling in. I'm getting notifications from people sending stuff over. So that's the reason why I'm like 2 hours late. But I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I had to chop out some of it and push it to tomorrow. So some of these things that are a little more, they're kind of topical right now. Hopefully the 24-hour news cycle doesn't move beyond me in 24 hours. But we've got a whole bunch of things to get through today. So first of all, I got a couple funny ones here. I got some entertaining ones. This one had me just absolutely belly laughing in bed last night. I was cracking up at this. So it's a road rage incident in Miami, and watch what happens. The way he frickin' jumped to karate chop the mirror. Then nothing really happens. He just speeds away. Oh man, you know that guy got back. He felt like huge surge of adrenaline for a minute, and he goes walking back to his car, and he's like, "Fuck yeah, I'm a badass." And he went, he sat down in his car, and he went, "Ah, ah." His hand is probably he's going to be feeling that one for a while. Some office bro goes out and karate chops a mirror off of a car. Ugh. Also says something about like how shitty the mirror is that you could get a wimpy little office bro can chop it off with one big karate chop. Euthanasia. I'm trying to get through the Everything is Containment cigar stream from yesterday. Yeah, I love AA. I find him immensely entertaining. I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that he does, but there's a point at which I realize, okay, there is clearly, I think he would agree with this. There's clearly a cutoff point where it's like the European mind and the American mind are never going to see things the same. I see this all over the place. I see lots of even the most based Brits or Euro types. There's something that's just different about them. American is very clearly a different, just a completely different type of person, completely different identity. Just see the world completely differently, have different values, and just occupy different worlds. And so it's very clear to me that the European insights coming from like Europeans who are alive right now, I always got to take them with a grain of salt. It's just because like you're talking about Mike, like I would presume if I was to weigh in on, British politics or French politics, whatever, I hardly know what I'm talking about. I don't have anywhere near the grasp of the nuance or the various different little details you would know if you were actually there, if you were feeling the French spirit or the German spirit or the Welsh spirit or what have you. So I don't. I take it with a grain of salt when I hear the Europeans weigh in on American politics, as I would expect them to do if I was to weigh in on European politics. Catholic Orthodoxy on Twitter says blood and soil American versus European. Yeah, and that's part of that's part of it. I like that fact. I like that fact. That tells me that American is not some sort of fake identity. It's not some false commercialized, hackneyed trope. It's actually a legitimate, real identity. Maybe it was originally conceived as some sort of a hackneyed trope or whatever. Maybe it was intentionally seeded. But these sorts of things, like after enough generations, even an intentionally seeded fake identity can actually become real. And to those who are born down the line from that, it's real. That's the only identity that they're ever going to know. They're born into this condition. The what is it called? Throneness. Like we're thrown into our condition. So I think, and that to me is a white pill. That means that whatever American is, it's going to be sustained. There's going to be an American identity that's going to behave as all identities do, and especially it's like emerging identities. I would consider American to still be an emerging identity in the course of history. To us, it's like, 250 years, that's a really long time. But on the span of history, it's not. That's like a blink. 250 years is enough time for like an identity to sort of begin, like to come into its own. But there's probably multiple generations hence before we actually get to, or I guess not hence, to be like, I was going to say heretofore, but it's not that either. It's whatever the multiple generations from now will we will actually see the birth of, or the full coming into being of the American identity. If you were to take a national identity like this and chart it over across a human lifespan, I would say we're like teenagers right now. America's in like its teenage stage, so it's having, you know, these bubbling up and turmoils, but as the American identity is going to settle into its adult period, I would say probably be somewhere between like 50 and 100 years from now. And then who knows how long that adult period will last. But squaring with the rest of history, I'd say probably 100, 200 years at least. Euthanasia says 600 years is about 10% of our recorded history, and the U.S. has been around for about a third of that 10%. Right. So you can't treat it like it's a fixed thing or even like it's something that's on the decline. I think that there's a lot of reasons why America has never had a real, genuine, authentic identity unto itself. It's been developing it for a long time, but that's been it's been subverted by outside influences, let's say. Yeah, Catholic Orthodoxy says it's blood and soil. Yeah, and again, 250 years is just not that long. So I think you have to have this perspective to begin with to understand where I'm coming from when I talk about various things. I'm operating from this assumption, which I think is pretty. I don't think it's common. I don't think a lot of people see it this way. A lot of people see us as being at the end of the empire, but I don't think we've even begun to be an empire. I think we're at the end of a Republican stage. But the empire is still to come. The empire has not been our empire. It's not been the empire that a sovereign American identity would create. That's going to come later. The sovereign American identity is going to form, and then it's going to enter into its imperial stage. Okay, so let's take I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but I just have to do it. I can't not. I am just obligated by my spirit to do this, guys. Do this to you guys. In part because then we can read the comments together, and the comments are just something else. I don't my Norman Rockwell painting of like the man standing alone. My opinion that fills that category is these guys. These guys are absolute artists. They're brilliant. They're brilliant and they're very wholesome. I'm going to inflict them on you.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
It's a piece of provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
It's a piece of provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
It's a piece of provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what the is that smell?
It's a piece of provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell? It smells like ass.
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
It's a piece of provolone.
Oh, Cousin Angelo, that stinks. What is that?
Provolone.
Cousin Angelo, what's that smell?
Provolone.
We're not even halfway through the video. And I'm not going to play the rest of it. I will concede on this. I will give you guys some mercy here. The video continues for another what is it, like a full minute longer of this, and this is literally all it is for the rest of the. He eats the provolone at the end of the video. What's really got my attention about this is if it was just something that like I was watching and I was like, man, I can't stop watching this. This is transfixing. But then I saw other people in the comments that were saying the same thing. I don't necessarily, they're not in these ones, I don't think, but there's other people who were like, I don't get it. I think Howling Mutant might have been one of them. He's like, I kind of don't understand why I enjoy just sitting and watching this. And it's really, it really like splits people's opinions, where there's the people who it's so cringe that they just can't even, they're like, they have a knee-jerk, just like physical response, a visceral reaction to it. But then for me, I'm watching it and I'm sitting here, number one, it's the Italian stereotype on steroids. The part where I think that they're wholesome is the fact, like, how often do you see in popular culture a happy nuclear family that's just doing something fun and having a great time together, where the vibes are just off the charts? It doesn't matter what they're doing. They're just doing something goofy, just kind of goofing around and being silly and coming up with silly things to do. That's what they are. Eric Winter says, at least it's not politics. Right. It's just mindless. It's just like mindless and entertaining, but it's also really absurd. Like this is like a variant of the sort of skit that, like, I don't know, like Sam Hyde might come up with. Sam Hyde would have his own variation of this, but it's one of these things that's just completely like, why are you doing this? Why? Why is this happening? It's the thing it's like completely upsetting to the audience. The audience is like, what the fuck? What's happening? No, we need resolution. Like, make it stop. There's an artistic talent to that, and it works. It's made them go uber viral. Some people are like, oh, they're being paid. Yeah, obviously. So now they're going out and making absurd, goofy videos together and making tons of money doing it as a family. I don't see how this isn't wholesome. Comedic edging, yeah. Nathan Conley says, it's because it's people having fun and it's funny and it's highly repetitive, like Teletubbies. Yeah, so there's also that. Like there's something that's I said transfixing, but it's like mesmerizing. This repetition kind of gets your brain like, whoa, what is going on here? I just think that's, I don't know. Obviously, there's lots of bad things that could be associated with it, but I mean, this is the case for any form of any art form or any production that someone makes. You're gonna have the negative stuff. You're gonna have the positive stuff. And here, I think it's great seeing this family just having fun together. But so the comments, I felt this sap my IQ as I nervously checked each time he said it's a piece of provolone to see if it was different or a loop cut. I've watched it 3 times all the way through. These people hold a mysterious intelligence-draining power that I only assume makes them stronger. That's what I mean. Like, from an editing standpoint, like, I'm sitting here as someone that's interested in making internet videos and editing and presenting, like making presentations and stuff. I just throw this man in Twitter jail so he can detox. Like this thing, like, okay, we're going to do this bit where we repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again. And some people who are watching it are going to be like, wait a second, are they actually, is it just the same guy saying the same thing? Or are they literally playing the exact same clip over and over again? There's some depth to this that's pretty interesting. I'm this close to Fed posting. I wish my whole family had logos. That's kind of what I'm getting at. The Rizzler didn't get anywhere near enough screen time in this. How'd they miss him? The Rizzler in 30 years.
I stick motherfucking provolone in my socks at night so they smell like your sister's crotch in the morning. All right? I stick
There needs to be a study on the tri-state area TikTok sphere. Imagine showing this to a Sicilian immigrant 100 years ago. They're creating a new cinematic universe with all these characters. It's incredible. Hoopify. This is the one that got me. This is like Italian Cocomelon for me. That one was one of those, like, had to lay the phone down on the bed beside me and just sit there shaking, laughing for like a minute. Okay. All right. Time for a palate cleanser. See, here we are, here at the ASTROLABE, we are art critics. And we have a resident art ho. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is appreciating art that makes him want to vomit. Well, this is one of that does not fall into that category. The last one was. Part of that segment is about triggering Cooper. But this here, this is some really good art. This is a white pill. I love this. So stay strong, friends. candy lover. I was trying to figure out what it said up here. That's so good. That's so good. Hit that retweet. All right. Some more palate cleansers. I know I did you guys dirty, so I got to give you I got to make it up to you. Freedom ain't free. These are the guys protecting my pufferfish bags. Euthanasia says it sounds like high school. Yes, that is like that's just such the big. I can tell you exactly the generation that made this just by the fact that they chose that clip. That's total millennial bait, absolute millennial bait. No fucking blackpilling. That's right. And here's another one. This is so part of this is like these are just cute, cute puppies, cute kitties, crazy AI. But like the crazy AI video aspect of this is one of the things I want you to notice with these clips. The quality that they're scaling to and the speed at which they're doing it. We've talked before on the show, and I'm gonna keep saying this, that some of you out there, someone listening to this right now, could become the new Marvel Cinematic Universe film studios unto himself. There's some autist out there who's going to become absolutely amazing at making videos like this, and they're going to create their own original series, something inspired by Tolkien, I'm sure. And it's going to be fucking awesome, and they're going to be able to produce the entire movie. They could do like an entire film series depiction of that using video technology like this. It's not too far off in the future. And this sort of thing has a lot. You can wield tremendous cultural power with something like that. If you get something that you know how to write a story, you know how to dial it in and hit all the things that are going to make it go viral. The internet is opening up. There was a while there where the internet was really closed off to us. It's opening up for the time being. There's a lot of opportunity to push a lot of stuff out there. The great thing about this is that the style is, it doesn't require everything to be absolutely perfect because it's unrealistic enough that little unrealisms aren't that big of a deal. Kind of like watching like a cartoon. It's basically like an AI cartoon. but it's like a super realistic AI. It's like a super realistic cartoon in a way that cartoons really haven't achieved. There's something that's just much more real about it. Okay. My beloved wife sent me something to watch. Let me clear out some of my categories here. She sent me something, and I haven't watched it. I'm going to go into this one blind, but I can already tell it looks like it's going to be a good one. And obviously it is if she's going to send it to me. Okay. How do I... Using Instagram. How do I Instagram? Okay, let me refresh. Incredible boy changes father's perspective. It looks like this might be a tearjerker, folks, so get yourself ready.
3-year-old son just said the most beautiful thing. I walk out into my sunroom, which I can afford because my dad is Mr. Met, and I see my little boy taking his Paw Patrol figurines and throwing them up at the skylight. Now, as a parent, I'll admit my first thought was, oh, I'm going to put this kid in the dryer. But as a curious mind, I said, what is going through this little son of a bitch's head? So I ask him, and he says, Daddy, I'm trying to break the glass ceiling. And I just start laughing at him. I'm like, you're throwing fucking 20-mile-an-hour meatballs at tempered glass. You think you're gonna crack that fucking skylight? And he goes, no, Dad, the glass ceiling is a colloquialism describing how women have a hard time breaking into managerial positions. I'm like, you think you're fucking Randy Johnson? You think you're cracking tempered glass? You're fucking 3 years old. My 3-year-old son.
Okay. You got me. That was funny. Yeah, man, there's like, so when I watch something like that, there's layers to the happenings that are happening. And I was talking with Cooper about this the other day. The difference between the millennial and the Zoomer. And there's this thing I'm starting to notice with the millennial. I'm seeing it in myself, and I'm seeing it in other people, particularly with the Kamala ads and stuff that are coming out right now, where there's this impulse to explain everything, to make things spoken, versus leaving things unsaid. It was part of like millennial humor, I think, was you have the millennials as a reflection. This is kind of stuff that's just coming to my mind right now. So you have the millennials as a reflection of the boomers, and then Gen X being sort of like an inversion of the boomers, and then the Zoomers being an inversion of the millennials in a lot of ways. So then Gen X and the Zoomers have a relationship, and the millennials and the boomers have a relationship, where the later one is kind of like the reflection of the earlier one. And so you have boomer is kind of like naive idealist artist. Then you have the Gen X, which is sort of like rebellious individualist, kind of trend breaker. Then you have the millennial conformist. I think conformity is like the defining characteristic of the millennial generation. It's like conformity, the millennial spirit, the thing that really drives the millennial generation is conformity to the boomer vision. So the millennials have tried to live in that vision. And so there's like an insecurity to the generation that has I think that's where the need to explain everything, the need to put things out in the open. So they explain the jokes. There's something a meme I've been seeing going around lately, like millennials explaining jokes. They're like, they don't just hit you with the punchline. They hit you with the punchline and then they like add on. And I do this myself. I recognize it in myself. So watching that, I'm fascinated by the different layers of interplay here, where he's taking he's spoofing an existing style of video that, the father sitting down and being emotional and stuff about his kid doing something, but he's like spoofing that and making a parody out of it. And so there's these two different streams that are running simultaneously. It's like messages being sent out through different vectors at the same time, that I find fascinating. But then I recognize, I talk to some people about it, and they're, especially if they're older or like significantly older or significantly younger, they'll be kind of like, All right, yeah, well, like so who cares? Like, what's the big deal? Yeah. Anyways, that was something I was thinking about the other day. Now this one here is quite profound. So we did a little bit a few weeks ago talking about the Shroud of Turin, and they made a hyper-realistic sculpture of the man depicted on the Shroud of Turin. So, like, for those of you who don't know, the Shroud of Turin was the burial wrap around Christ's body, and it has incredible detail in it. Basically, a reflection of the person it was wrapped around physically is like imprinted upon the shroud. So they took I guess like 3D printed essentially a hyper realistic sculpture of what the reflection on the shroud is, and check out what it looks like.
The figure is unveiled to the world. The figure is an extraordinary piece of work, looking incredibly lifelike. The hyper-realistic sculpture, which is made of latex, silicone and real human hair, has been based on data collected from the Shroud of Turin.
La piel se hunde, la piel, el vello es humano.
The skin sinks. The hair is human. It weighs 75 kilos. It behaves like a person. It is real, right? I think this has been a big risk because we didn't manage to create successfully the image of the man under that shroud.
Even the head has wounds and blood, the suggestion being that they're from the crown of thorns. The figure is unveiled to the
figure. Yeah, that's quite a video. Several years ago, it would have made me really uncomfortable. I would have been like, oh, this feels like something that we shouldn't do. There's something that's too Yet at the same time, it's something that humanity was inevitably going to do. Like, if you know humans, if you understand how humans work, it was something that was going to happen inevitably. And then becoming Orthodox, and I haven't seen a priest or any Orthodox scholar or anything weigh in on this directly. I would even value what a Roman Catholic said about it, probably. So if someone out there has said something like, "Hey, this is not okay," then I would be I would immediately defer to that, because I do get that kind of like feeling. But my imagination runs wild with the kind of creepy things that could be done because of something like this. But I'm feeling I want to be very careful with what I say. I think I'll just say I think it's very cool. I see the potential danger in it. I recognize that, and if somebody says that it is not cool, then someone with spiritual authority, then I'll defer to that. But it's definitely marked a big turning point in my own life from my perspective on the Shroud of Turin before to now, and the significance of it to the Western rationalist sort of materialist mind that I've been gifted. All right. So let me see what the other stories are I've got here. So I've got an Elon Kamala thing. Then I've got JD Vance, David Sachs, Trump with Bitcoin, some more Vance. Okay. So this was an ad that was posted by Mr. Reagan USA on Twitter. He's got a pretty big YouTube following, Mr. Reagan. And he this was 4 days ago. So he posted this video, and then Elon Musk shared it. So like the holy grail of Twitter posting is getting Elon Musk to share something that you posted. He's got 22 million views on this. So we'll play the ad first, and then it'll be relevant for the story after it.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking. The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be, unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden. You think the country went to over the past 4 years? You ain't seen nothing yet.
Okay, so I am obligated, probably, and this may not even be enough to keep the video up on YouTube. There's a good chance I'll have to cut that out entirely because it's altered. It is an altered, that is not actually Kamala Harris talking. So I'm going to make sure that that's very clear, YouTube. This is an example of a fake video. This is fake political propaganda using AI to make it appear like Kamala Harris is saying something that she is not. And the official position of the ASTROLABE is that we do not endorse doing this sort of thing. However, if you do it, then we'll talk about it and we'll play it and we'll make sure that we spread the word that it is not okay. So Elon Musk shared it, and of course he winds up with a headline. And the reason this headline was produced was so that it could be screenshotted by Gavin Newsom. And so Elon Musk retweets altered Kamala Harris campaign ad. In the video, Harris seemingly exposes herself as an incompetent candidate for president. The origin of the video isn't known yet. They don't even know where the video came from, even though the dude who tweeted it literally ended it with the logo for his channel. The only reason that they push out this headline is so that Gavin Newsom can screenshot it and tweet, manipulating a voice in an ad like this one should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. Now, if you wanted to we've talked about the PayPal Mafia guys. If you wanted to get them real riled up, you imply that you're going to do something around making certain uses of AI illegal. That gets their hackles raised pretty quick. So Elon replies to him and says, I checked with renowned world authority Professor Sugon D's nuts, and he said parody is legal in America. Some guy says, I believe he studied under the legendary Professor Teabags. And he says, not to mention Pulitzer Prize winner Dr. Head, first name Dick. We've got the wealthiest man in the world making dickhead jokes about the preening, smarmy, massively unpopular governor of California. Eat a dick, Elon 2024. Oh, man. We live in such a great time. There's lots of shit going on, and who knows what the next several months is going to hold, but there are definitely some bright parts. Thank you, Cooper, for texting me and reminding me about this. I can't believe I forgot to do it. It's because I didn't put it in the ASTROLABE folder. I was just like, oh, I'll just pull it out when the time comes. Over the weekend, where the hell did it go? Over the weekend, Colin Narrow Path Enjoyer on Twitter posted he made a video. He made a cool video, and it was very interesting for me watching a hype video with my own voice in it and getting hyped by my own voice. I'm trying to find the video. Cooper, send it to me again. Send it on Discord. I've tweeted too much since then. Or actually, did you send it? I think you might have texted it to me before, so I might be able to pull it up before you get it from Discord. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, no, oh yeah, here it is. I found it. Found it. Okay. Share the screen. Go subscribe to the Curse World Problems podcast, YouTube podcast. These guys are, oh, come on. Go away, Discord. These guys are, they are rising stars. The first time, so we met Colin through the Kingpill Discord and got to know him. And then he told us that he was going to be dropping a podcast. So we were anxiously awaiting it. They recorded a bunch and then they started uploading them. And at like 10 minutes into the first podcast, I texted Cooper and I was like, these dudes are going to be big. They are so good together. So Cursed World Problems podcast, it's Colin and Justin, brothers, talking, they're orthodox, talking, politics, religion, philosophy, all sorts of different stuff. It's so good. And Colin knows his way around a video editor. So he threw this together over the weekend. You got to chill out. You need to calm down. You need to focus and not be yanked one way or the other by each new news drop, because that's the purpose of the news drops. The purpose of the news drops are to demoralize and fracture the growing coalition on the right. That's the purpose of them. So when the regime does something to demoralize you, choosing to be demoralized by it is retarded. You can't then claim to be opposed to the regime because you're just functioning as its proxy. This is the way they recruit you, is by demoralizing you, by making you despair, because that's something they can work with. They can feed off of that energy like vampires. So stop fucking blackpilling. You got to chill out. Yeah, baby. They made this in the evening and they tried to get a hold of me to tell me to show it, to send it to me before they posted it. I was sick and asleep, and so I woke up and that's the first thing I watched in the morning, and I was like, hell yeah, brother. So Cursed World Problems podcast. This is the guys here. Go subscribe to them. They are the most criminally undersubscribed channel on YouTube. 145 subscribers is completely unacceptable. Look at this. Look at this art. Look at this channel art. Politics are cursed. Stop blackpilling. Journey into orthodoxy. They're just go subscribe to them. You I believe will be hearing more from them in the not too distant future. That is a tease. So let's go to the next story here. Axios remote fitness coaching. It's Sturker. He says they MK Ultra, we MK Swultra. You need to put that on a shirt, man. That's fantastic. So we've documented the rise of MAGA republicanism amongst the Silicon Valley crowd. And this is Bastian Lehman, who is the former CEO of Postmates. He said, when I was, in July 25th, he said, I'm getting a lot of questions about me supporting Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz's decision to support Donald Trump. And my reply is very simple. If you're a startup, AKA little tech, you have to support the current Republican Party. And he says, when I was the CEO of Postmates, I always played it safe. I was passive, just like DC likes it. I supported both sides, never had too much of an opinion. I'm over it. Pick a side, move on. Given the current agenda, I am pro-Republican, and every startup should be. So you're selling your soul, democracy, and women out for money? That's Broligarthy, folks. And he said, just my soul. So this is part of this vibe shift. Are these guys our guys? No. They're not our guys. They're not perfectly aligned with us. Are they share lots of values that we don't have. Are they people that you could exist in a civil society with? Yeah. For a time being, at least? Yeah, absolutely. They're not, if you listen to Pete Quinones on Tom Luongo, absolutely fantastic conversation, absolute must listen. Pete nailed everything in that. One of the things they took away from the conversation, I think they even put it in the title, is that indifference is better than hostility. These guys here they're probably, the majority of them are shit libs, transhumanists potentially. They've got all sorts of whacked out values that we don't share. However, the value they do have is that they are not openly hostile to us. They don't want to destroy us. Like Pete says, everyone's like worried about Elon Musk putting a chip in your head. He's not going to need to come hunt you down to put chips in your head. There's going to be people lining up to get chips in their head. Do I think it's good for people to go get chips in their head? No, probably not. I mean, I think that if you're going to have a problem with chips in the head, then you probably also got to have a conversation about pacemakers. So I think this isn't like a super really easy, hard, cut and dry conversation. But I'm not concerned about Elon coming after me to hunt me down and put chips in my head. And if you view this as a matter of warfare, where this is what liberal politics evolved to transplant warfare into bureaucracy, essentially. So it's on a continuum. This is actually the way that war works now. Occasionally, it actually gets to what we would normally call war, which is like hot war. But this is, I don't know, 5th or 6th generation warfare or what have you. Which means, in a political sense, we need allies. We need allies who we can work with. And I would say like the very bare minimum qualification is they aren't openly hostile to us and wanting to put us in camps. I'll take that as like an absolute minimum qualification because that's the stakes of what we're facing right now. So aligning with them politically, recognizing that they are allies to us at this point in time, is you have to hold this on one side. On the other side, you have to hold the recognition that just because they're our guys politically in this political environment does not mean that they are our guys and we support everything they support. We align with everything they align with. This isn't like a really clear black and white line. It requires wisdom and discernment and being extremely circumspect. I almost headed off in another direction, but I'm going to save that for now because I've got a few more things that I want to get to before we get to that. So put a pin in this thought, what no fucking black pilling means, and we'll tie into it toward the end of the show after I lay out some other stuff before that. Okay. J.D. Vance and the emerging counter elite. So this is a piece from Chris Rufo, which I find it very interesting now that the term counter elite is being openly used. Even like it's one thing to identify the phenomenon. It's another to start actually using the terminology. This has happened very, very quickly. Like, I don't know, 2 months ago, if you'd have done a search for counter elite on Twitter, you probably would have only found results from the broadly dissident right, neo-reactionary, trad-cath, like ortho-bro kind of circle of Twitter. Now, you've got Chris Rufo, who's not far removed, but counter elite is now a term. The reason he is using it is because it's now in circulation and people are using it broadly. He says, how a second Trump administration could avoid some of the pitfalls of the first. Former President Donald Trump's selection of Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate has generated much commentary. The mainstream media has tried to frame Vance as a post-liberal threat to democracy, while Trump supporters have celebrated him as a bridge to a new generation. But there is a deeper story here. The Vance selection is not a gambit to secure a particular demographic or region. White men are Trump's base. Ohio is a safe red state. But an effort to cultivate an emerging counter-elite that could make the second Trump administration substantially more effective than the first. This story is built into J.D. Vance's biographical arc. He was the all-American kid who rose from humble beginnings to make his way in the world. The Marines, Yale Law, venture capital, a best-selling book. He learned the language of the prestige institutions, cultivated powerful patrons, and quickly climbed the ladder in academia, finance, and business. He had made it. Then his story takes a turn. Having entered the ranks of America's elite, Vance became disillusioned and disenchanted with it, correctly identifying it as a force of hypocrisy and corruption. He defected, first by parting ways with the respectable conservatism of the Beltway, and then by embracing Donald Trump. Some have criticized this as a cynical move, but my sense is that it's the opposite. A cynic would have continued to build an elite resume. Vance sacrificed his respectability within a certain stratum, assumed considerable risk by moving toward Trump, and, in my view, was genuinely convinced that the establishment, both left and right, had exhausted itself and had to be opposed. Now, not only has Vance been selected as a vice presidential nominee, more significantly, he has charted the path for an emerging new conservative counter-elite. The political balance is beginning to shift. A significant cohort of power brokers in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street have publicly moved toward Trump in this election cycle. Some of the names are familiar: Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, Bill Ackman. But hundreds of other influential figures are assembling behind the scenes to support Trump's campaign. Even some of Trump's former adversaries, such as Mark Zuckerberg, have expressed cautious admiration for the former president. Vance can now position himself at the center of this counter-elite. He has been in the boardrooms, made the pitches, and built the relationships. He speaks their language. They can do business together. This could represent a sea change. During the first Trump administration, especially following the death of George Floyd, institutional elites could neither express admiration for nor devote public support to Trump without paying a significant political price. Now the market has shifted, with a dissident elite moving along a similar path as Vance. Signals in these institutions always flow from the top down. When the All In podcast members host a fundraiser for Trump, they give permission to others in Silicon Valley to do the same. And I've had people from Silicon Valley, deeply embedded in Silicon Valley, who've reached out to me, and they've said that the All In podcast bros, going for a couple of them openly pro-Trump, and for the other two, like begrudgingly respectful of Trump, that has had ripple effects throughout Silicon Valley, because that's a very highly respected, well-listened podcast, and you can tell that's the case because of just how pissed off people get about them. If they didn't command significant sway in the industry, then you wouldn't see the absolute spitting vitriol toward them. That vitriol from their own community is evidence of just how much sway they carry under the surface within that community. So them becoming pro-Trump is encouraging other people like Bastian Lehman to become pro-Trump as well. And they're normalizing it. They're bringing it out into the open. Is that a good thing for Trump electorally? Is he better being a more embraced, more mainstream personality? Or does it work in his favor to be the outsider? I don't know. That's an interesting thought. When Bill Ackman endorsed Trump without negative repercussions, he gives permission to others on Wall Street to speak their minds. If the Trump-Vance ticket wins in November, this counter-elite support could pay significant dividends for the Trump agenda. In his first administration, Trump led through charismatic authority, trusting his intuitions and using the force of his personality to bend policy from the White House. There were successes, but also limitations. Trump endured considerable staff turnover, often lacking the institutional buy-in that would enable him to implement his agenda effectively. This is not a problem that Democrats face. Their institutional strength is immense. For a Republican president, however, a supportive counter-elite has become an essential precondition for success. This is where Vance can help with Trump's agenda. He can serve as a translator, turning Trump's charismatic vision into a rational, legalistic formula. And he can lead the emerging right-wing counter-elite so that Trump's policies, which enjoy a significant base of support among the working and middle classes, can gain greater traction within elite institutions. We should note the irony. Trump's childhood was gilded while Vance's was troubled. And yet, Trump has a magnetic attachment to the masses. Think of his archetypal Rust Belt voter, while Vance holds appeal to a sector of the elite. For this reason, Trump's picking Vance makes sense. He saw not only someone who could help advance the agenda, but also a younger heir who could bring it into the future. In this way, it is a more ambitious gesture than typical VP picks by either party, which are more commonly driven by a need for balance on a ticket. If Trump wins in November and Vance is able to form a durable counter-elite, Trump's selection of him could prove to be one of the most consequential vice presidential choices in modern history. And I think I agree 100% with every single thing he said. This is it has been exactly the narrative that has been playing out in our minds for the last several months. Everyone talking about like Vance's appeal to the Rust Belt, like that's important. That's what pushes him over the edge as being the ideal candidate. Versus say someone like Vivek, because Vivek has a similar background, a similar story. Literally from the same, they went to college together and they both live in the same state. But what Vance has over Vivek is deeper connections within Silicon Valley, especially the big power brokers in Silicon Valley, if you know what I mean. And then he's a white boy. He's a white boy with a crazy backstory. Taylor Brown says Vance feels like he could be a Dick Cheney type president. I think that would be the upshot. That would be the ideal situation. Is that actually I had a story here. Yeah, I'll pull this in now before we get some more Vance clips because this relates directly to that. So this guy, Andy Paula, says, strictly off aura, who would you have picked for VP? So this is Doug Burgum, the governor of South Dakota. And then Vance, obviously. And so obviously this is a Vance critical post. And I said, I want a dude who's aligned with my guys and willing to serve as a vector for annihilating a bunch of bureaucratic red tape, not a piece of mantelpiece eye candy. Let Trump delegate and strike poses while JD goes to work. JD's VP will invert the roles and be the eye candy type. So if Vance is the one who's tagged as Trump's successor now, which he effectively is, then he's the operator. Trump is delegate, CEO, Vance is like chief operating officer. And those two photos are apples to oranges too. You're right. Like if Vance wanted to strike a pose and look all regal and everything, then he could do that if he needed to. He's not going to quite come off the way that he does, just because I mean, the dude looks like a colonial general or something. But that's not Vance's job. That's not what he's here for. He's here to bring in. Everyone's looking at like his electoral appeal. He's the financial appeal. He's the one that is. Pete touches on this talking to Tom Luongo that Trump was probably in actually some political or some financial hot water until he got a huge infusion of cash, and now he's got an ever growing amount of cash coming from Silicon Valley. Now that it's becoming normalized, so that's Vance's role. This is now you're seeing one rising elite class appealing directly to another elite class to form a political coalition. That's exactly what happened here. Okay, then, a couple comments here I wanted to highlight. Dom Clemente says, have people not realized the significance of this? I thought about it, and when he comes into office, I'd be 4 handshakes away from the VP of the damn United States of America. Still worlds apart, but I think not enough people understand the significance of him being our guy. And I'll say it again, go back and listen to the stream we did a few weeks ago where we read about J.D. Vance's conversion. This is one thing like a Christian to Christian. When you see someone talking in a certain way, there's a certain authenticity to the way that he wrote that as a Christian who's gone through a lot of these things myself, I know that only someone who's writing authentically would produce something like that. So you're seeing like an actual genuine look at his soul when he's describing his conversion. And he is a sincere, authentic guy. And we're going to see some more of the stuff he has to say politically in a little bit. Ambient Olympic says, one will preen about our principles and the sacred Constitution while going on Hannity every week. The other will be laser focused on creating a counter-elite in D.C. and at least understand the friend-enemy distinction. Think I'll take option B. That's correct. Oh, and this is funny. You've got the emo Vance thing going on here. And I don't know how I feel about this just yet. I kind of don't think that it's great, but I don't know. It's taking something that's obviously meant to be a meme and making a meme out of it. But the emo Vance, someone put I'm a creep.
Just like an angel.
Said we need someone to balance out Trump's aesthetic taste, and it's our sensitive young man. Yeah, Nikolai, I don't get these people. Pence had all the looks and pomp. He was shit. Now we suddenly want to pretend otherwise? Yes. Okay, so some quotes from, first of all, from Vance. Actually, I think I got one quote from Vance here. Michael Sebastian, at Honor and Daring, he says, if you don't support this candidate, who will you support?
I think the thing that we have to take away from the last 10 years is that we really need to be really ruthless when it comes to the exercise of power. I was talking about this with someone earlier today, where you remember there was some threat that congressional or Senate Republicans made. If you get rid of the filibuster, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And you actually look at it, it's like, oh, this is not that interesting.
We're going to actually deliver on our promises that we've made for decades.
Right? Sounds this is the threat. If you get rid of the filibuster, we're going to do this stuff. Like, they're talking about expanding the Supreme Court. They're talking about adding, 2 senators from heavily Democratic places.
You get rid of the filibuster, we'll actually deliver on defund.
We'll do what the base has been telling us that we don't want to do.
Yeah. So I think, look, I am a cynic about this and maybe even a little bit of a pessimist, but I think the challenge confronting American conservatives is that we have lost every major powerful institution in the country, except for maybe churches and religious institutions, which of course are weaker now than they've ever been. We have lost big business, we've lost finance, we've lost the culture, we've lost the academy. And if we're going to actually really affect real change in the country, it will require us completely replacing the existing ruling class with another ruling class. I say that knowing and hearing myself, it sounds really hard. It is really hard. But I don't think there's like a detente with these people. I don't think there's sort of a compromise that we're going to come with the people who currently actually control the country. Unless we overthrow them in some way, we're going to keep losing. And that's the challenge. Now,
I don't know, man. If you're blackpilling about Vance, I don't know what to do with you. Really don't know what to do with you. If you want to look at it from an electoral perspective, then I think the arguments about him being like aesthetically lukewarm or kind of bland, sort of boring, I think those are legit. I think he's not like a super comfortable public speaker, but he's an operator. That's what he's there for. He's there to be an operator. And let me pull the video up here for you, Taylor. His job is going to be coalition building and wrangling support, bipartisan and otherwise, and intra-party support behind the scenes. He's going to have a big role in presidential personnel. So what this is they're getting a guy who's going to be a good vice president. Then they need to get across the line electorally and manage the shenanigans, which that's a question yet to be determined. But the Vance pick is a clear signal as to what interests are going to be represented by the White House. This is Trump rejecting one group of people who were making overtures to him and throwing in with a different group of people. There's some overlaps in the interest between those two groups of people. They're not like wholly like complete. You can't think of these in totally like black and white terms. Of course, there's certain particular things that there's a big overlap in, but that means that issue is not an issue that can be resolved right now. There is not a third option where the interests of Israel aren't represented, or you have a group, an elite class that comes in that's openly hostile to them. That doesn't exist. It's not politically viable. There's no momentum to be had behind that issue right now. If you're treating this as we're in a war and we need to think about this in warlike terms, this is actually a reason to be far more prudent and wise and cautious and circumspect. Recognizing that this is what warfare looks like right now does not mean lose your mind and get deranged and bloodthirsty. Quite the opposite, in fact. We need to get really serious and focused. Make decisions with intention and be prepared to back those decisions that you make. Every single, each thing that happens from here on out for the next several months is going to have major stakes, and there is going to be info warfare flying like crazy. There are spiritual vibes that are high right now that are looking for hosts. You have to be very careful which vibe you decide to inhabit, which means you need to have a really clear picture of, you need to know what time it is, so to speak. Have a really clear picture of what the terrain is and what the different possible outcomes are and what the stakes are that are attached to them. We'll have more on this as we continue through here. David Sachs, co-founder of Craft Ventures, David Sachs, says what pushed him to get involved in the 2024 election was seeing lawfare against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. If you allow them to get away with that, it doesn't stop there. They'll just keep doing it with more political enemies. We're going to speed this one up a little bit.
It's become almost totally and completely acceptable in society, in polite society or high society, to be a Trump voter. Yeah. That's something that is, I would have never guessed. Never in my living through the last 5 years, I would have never guessed this. But now it is because of, and the reason I call you a Sith Lord is it's because in part to some of the work that you've done, right? Like you shattered that. No, Trump can come into Silicon Valley, you can come to the heart of San Francisco and do a fundraiser, and you can make tens of millions of dollars. You're shattering these paradigms, and you just described paradigm after paradigm. That used to be mantles of the left that they would cling to. We want peace, we want security at home. We want to help poor people. Now you're saying, I can't believe I can say this. You're making it acceptable to wear a MAGA hat in downtown San Francisco. How is it possible? How'd you do it, David?
Well, let's give credit to some other folks too. Peter Thiel and Palmer Luckey also, they supported Trump in 2016. So they really, I think, broke this. And they took a lot of slings and arrows for doing that. The thing that put me over the top in this election cycle, so, I agree with Trump on the issues we talked about, but the thing that really offended me so much that I was like, I just have to get involved, is all the lawfare. The idea that a president would prosecute his chief rival and seek to put him in jail, seek to bankrupt him, go after his kids. I mean, it's beyond the pale. And if you allow that to get normalized, it doesn't stop there. We've already seen with my friend Elon Musk that he's now the target of a number of government investigations that seem completely ridiculous. At SpaceX, being investigated for not hiring enough basically legal asylum seekers in a national security company makes no sense. It being investigated at Tesla for supposedly building a glass house, insane. I mean, they keep coming with more and more preposterous. It's almost like trying to prosecute someone for an expired bookkeeping misdemeanor or something like that. They are weaponizing the justice system to go after their political opponents. And if you allow them to get away with that, it doesn't stop there. They'll just keep doing it with more and more political enemies. So to me, that was something that really offended me, and I was like, I really got to do what I can to help President Trump. And then JD Vance asked me as well. He's like, look, do you think we could get do a Trump fundraiser in San Francisco? And
isn't that interesting? Interesting little tidbit there. Do you think we could do a Trump fundraiser in San Francisco? So Vance was part of organizing that.
I was like, well, how much do you need to raise? Because it is a pretty liberal place. And I think the original goal was $5 million. It's like, okay, I think I can do that, and so I called Chamath, who's a co-host of mine on the All In Pod, said, do you want to do this with me? And to his great credit, he said yes, because he had only given the Democrats in the past. And he's, more of, I'd say, like a center left guy. So for him to come on board, was, he took a big risk too. And then from there, the domino started to slowly fall. And then we got more and more people accepting. And it was like, okay, wait, I think we can raise $8 million. And then I heard that in New York, the big wig finance guys had raised 10 at their dinner. So I was like, well, okay, you think we could do 10? And then we ended up doing 12, and it ended up being 13 because people gave more at the dinner. So we ended up raising $13 million in one dinner, which was a huge thing. And the timing was really good because it was the first event that Trump did after the convictions in that ridiculous sham trial.
So a little more information on how all of this came together. And I think that particularly him dropping that Vance played a role in setting that up, that was the biggest thing that I got from that video when I first saw it. Taylor Brown says, these guys realize that a regime bold enough to target a former president is bold enough to target them. Bryce says, JD being seen as COO is honestly the best way to describe it. America's a nation, but it has to be ran like a business that has 300 million individual parts. Yeah, and that's a perspective that they're bringing to bear. Tucker Carlson has gone out of his way multiple times recently to describe democracy as being like every citizen is a shareholder in the government and the government is a company. He's even recently he said he referred to the United States of America as the most powerful company in the world. So this sort of thought is lingering behind there. I've been thinking about these guys coming in as there's the Obviously, all the stuff involved in the RNC that was very, appalling. I think probably the way, I don't know if this makes things better or worse for you, but if you would imagine that several years ago, the Republican Party went like completely off the deep end on whatever thing, like just full scale, like draft everyone and go to war and went nuts. And the Democrats moved to the center, moved over and started making overtures to disaffected right-wingers who were like, I don't want any part of this full-scale like neocon meltdown. That would be basically what we're seeing here. That's the way that I view it. I view it as like the Democrats are making overtures to disaffected Republicans. And that's the political home that is available to us right now. And when the alternative is like every man in the society is getting drafted and sent to war, and you have someone coming in that's saying, hey, maybe we don't do that. Maybe we don't just like draft everyone and send them to war and kill everyone in a generation. Maybe we should do something a little different than that. Like this is, I don't know if that reframe, like that's what I've had playing in my mind as I think about how to relate to these guys. So in an event like that, okay, you're like, all right, we're going to make a deal that thinking in horse trading terms, like we're going to make a deal here where you're going to protect some of our interests. You're going to protect us from these guys while we get this existential risk off the playing field and away. We disempower it. Dial everything back down, reinvest in important things that we agree are good. And then there's going to be some issues here that are like major issues that we don't see eye to eye on. And our goal is to move the entire political conversation to where we are the poles. We're the new two parties. So looking at these as our guys they're our guys right now. And many of them, I would say, are even like JD Vance would be, as far as I can tell, someone that I would love to have in a group chat and I would trust and be completely open and talk about anything with. Like how else are you going to define this? So no fucking blackpilling doesn't mean we can't critique them, or when we say that they're our guys, that we're necessarily throwing our stamp of endorsement on every single thing that they do. We're recognizing them as political allies. They're willing to be political allies with us and our interests. And we're pretty short on political allies right now. If we're going to protect our homeland, if we're going to protect our people, protect our towns, we need people who are going to run cover for us and allow us to do that. And maybe even support it. Maybe if you toss us a crumb every now and then, we'll happily take the crumb. Because we need to build ourselves as an actual political force, which I believe is a Christian responsibility. In a world where all is politics, you can't simply just check out of politics. You may not have been the one that created that playing field, but you're going to be forced to engage on that playing field in the same way that you may not have elected to have some roving band of barbarians come invade your encampment, but it's still incumbent upon you to defend your homeland, to defend your tent, defend your children, your livestock, your women. The characteristic of the battlefield has changed, but it's still a battlefield, and it has to be engaged in as such, which is an extremely sober responsibility. What you can't do is lose your head. You can't get sucked in and become a right-wing NPC that's just baying for blood. Because there's certain battles that we hopefully don't have to fight. We don't want to be sparking any of them ourselves. That's the greatest danger. The greatest danger is that we get so demoralized and we despair so much that we fall into a desire for vengeance and bloodlust. That's the greatest danger. That's the lasting danger. What's happening right now is necessarily not sustainable. The regime is self-extinguishing. We need to allow the regime to self-extinguish and protect ourselves from it as much as possible. but necessarily by the definitions of left and right, where left is far departed from reality and right is aligned with reality, the things that the right-wing forces do, when they do things, have a much more lasting impact. We need to be sober and disciplined and wise. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. And remember that our posture here is defensive and protecting our people, protecting our families, protecting our communities. And that needs to be front of mind. Because there's nothing that the regime wants more, and in particular the forces behind the regime, there's nothing that they want more than to cultivate emotionally detached bloodlust and a desire for vengeance. This is the vengeful son spirit. And as Jason of the Two Bit Podcast has said over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, it's gonna feel good. Something feeling good cannot be your metric for whether or not it is good. You've got to exercise your own wisdom and parse these things for yourself and listen to your soul. Listen to your gut. When your gut is telling you something just doesn't seem right, then don't follow it. Right now, the regime is all about defending our gays. Yeah. Our guys greater than our gays. Here's another contingency for Trump that is throwing their support behind them, and I suspect that this is going to be pretty significant in financial terms. And this is where it really matters. At the end of the day, like the votes themselves are. I got to be careful with what I say here because I also want to I want to maintain the channel. There are things that are more important than votes. We'll say that. And money is very high up on the list. When all the financial interests throw themselves behind a certain candidate, when a sufficient number of financial interests throw themselves behind a certain candidate, then that candidate is going to win. We'll just say that.
Elizabeth Warren and her goons, and she's very nasty to you. She hates your people. She hates everything about you. Will keep their hands off Bitcoin. They're going to keep their hands off crypto. They're going to let it grow. We're going to let it grow. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. I didn't know he was that unpopular.
I love how you can hear in his voice when he turns from his sober, intoning voice, reading off of his teleprompter, to now it's time to riff.
Well, I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa. And we'll appoint a new SEC chairman who believes America should build the future, not block the future, which is what they're doing.
You can hear he's reading off the teleprompter. I will appoint a new SEC chairman who believes America should build the future, not block the future, period. And then he says, which is what they're doing. Maybe there's like a boomer thing about having to explain everything as well. AJ Jablon says, when you win over an entire room full of single issue voters in one sentence. Right. Yes, that's a fairly this is one thing. So I don't stonks. I have tried to understand crypto, Bitcoin. I understand it better than your average bear, but it's not my forte. But I do understand like general like behaviors of markets and the different financial interests that are involved and how they try to tug at each other. And if there was, so I'm starting from this premise that support for Trump within the Bitcoin community is overwhelming. Obviously, there's people, you can pull out the anecdotes of people who don't, but overwhelmingly, they're like some of the most passionate single issue voters. They also tend to be pretty wealthy. And if Bitcoin mooned for some reason, they would get much more wealthy, which would mean Trump would get that much more financial support, which tells me the price of Bitcoin is going to be kept artificially deflated. To whatever extent they have tools available at their disposal to do that, I believe they're going to do that. They may even try to force it down even further to punish them for abandoning ship for the Trump lifeboat. I don't know what that means in terms of the actual technicals of everything, but it does make me very suspicious about BlackRock's recent interest in Bitcoin and Larry Fink coming out and saying, yo, it's digital gold, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, those are some kind of random thoughts on a subject that I don't really know anything about and probably should really weigh in on in the first place. So we've got a thread here from Labrador Skeptic on Twitter. Come on, share screen. I see the background is red. Okay. The J.D. Vance sofa story is a very good screening mechanism, and it shows just how moronic the left and parts of the DR are. It's a completely made-up lie from an anonymous Twitter account. This is in no way harmless fun. This is a psyop intended to destroy the image of an up and rising right-wing politician, perhaps the most powerful millennial Republican yet. The brain-dead propaganda is released, and in the fact-free zone that is inhabited by the left, this spreads like wildfire. The attempt is made to create an indelible first impression of Vance as some sort of perverted weirdo will likely be successful in millions of minds. This will likely be recycled for years to come by leftists inhabiting an alternate universe of false facts. Most importantly, this complete fiction is spreading fast, even while equally fictitious venerations of Kamala as a brilliant leader are being spread. The media thinks we are complete fucking idiots with no limit to our stupidity. They're proven right by those spreading these stories. There is nothing harmless about them. And this chick said, cry harder. And he said, this reply from a leftoid shows what's happening. Looking at her timeline, they think they're successfully doing to Vance what they already did to Palin and Quayle. These people have absolute contempt for the intellectual capabilities of their own base on the left, and they're correct. So Curtis LeMay did nothing wrong, at Neo Americana, a great follow. He says, hey, Lab, what's your feeling on Vance's effect on the Heartland swing state vote? Labrador Skeptic says, I'm still learning about Vance. These are my 3 initial takeaways. 1, with Vance, Trump reinforced his relationship with his Heartland populist base instead of betraying it as he would have with alternate choices. Vance simultaneously reinforces the tenuous alliance that is being built with the Silicon Valley elites who are moving away from the Dems. Vance's tech background is very useful in bridging the gap between Trump and Elon as well as others. At 39 years old, with a formidable intellect and the ability to win a Senate race on his own, Vance could be called the most impressive millennial politician to date for either party. He has the potential to run for and win the presidency on his own. Again, we're still learning, but Vance could be an excellent choice when it comes to the future of the Republicans. This is why the media and Dems are trying so hard when it comes to preemptive character assassination. The widespread given to the ludicrous sofa invention shows that betting on stupidity may work. So another hit piece here on Vance was in The New Republic. J.D. Vance in hot water for praising book calling liberals unhumans. Donald Trump's running mate praised a book riddled with conspiracy theories and calling to crush non-Republicans. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance has found himself yet again in hot water after it was uncovered that he promoted a book decrying progressives as unhuman, written by a far-right conspiracy theorist. Unhumans, The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them, was written by the Pizzagate guy Jack Posobiec and ghostwriter Joshua Lisek, with a foreword by the recently imprisoned MAGA movement architect Steve Bannon. The book supposedly tracks the opponents of conservatism throughout history and endorses a modern-day McCarthyism to root out the radicals from American institutions. Quote, they don't believe what they say. They don't care about winning debates. They don't even want equality. They just want an excuse to destroy everything. They want an excuse to destroy you, Posobiec and Lisek wrote. Vance provided a glowing promotional blurb about the book, which is included on the website of right-wing publisher Skyhorse Publishing, Mother Jones reported Thursday. Quote, in the past, communists marched in the streets waving red flags. Today, they march through HR, college campuses, and courtrooms to wage lawfare against good, honest people, wrote Vance. In Unhumans, Jack Posobiec and Joshua Lisek reveal their plans and show us what to do to fight back. Vance's endorsement of the book demonstrates just how plugged in the Ohio Republican is to the extremist conspiratorial faction of his party. In addition to run-of-the-mill conservative takes such as election denialism, a conspiracy about big money backers to Democratic movements, and January 6 apologia, Unhumans veers into the ridiculous when discussing the beliefs of conservatives' progressive enemies. Quote, on a base level, Unhumans seek the death of the successful and the desecration of the beautiful, Posobiec and Lisek claimed. When comparing the Black Lives Matter movement to the French Revolution, they wrote, there is no way to reason with those who manipulate the have-nots en masse to loot and to shoot. They simply hate those who are good-looking and successful. They're describing bio-Leninism. Of course, their far-right screed has dark implications. After Trump was indicted in May on 34 criminal charges, Posobiec advocated for violent revolt against progressives. Quote, take the path of the hunter, and with one singular voice, we are going to make them the prey, he said. Since accepting the nomination at the Republican National Convention last week, Vance has been consistently embroiled in controversy over his past statements, including his blatantly sexist comment about childless cat ladies and humiliating rumors about having sex with a couch. See, this is how they fashion the narrative. He's been consistently embroiled in controversy. Literally just one little section of the internet is talking about the controversy, but this is how they astroturf these narratives. Beneath it all, Vance is still part of the intellectual New Right movement, influenced by pronatalism, techno-authoritarianism, and conservative economic populism. Based. Evidently, his reading list also includes extremist conspiratorial material, if he even bothered to read it before lending his name to it. Either way, Vance gave Posobiec and all of his dangerous and ridiculous ideas a boost. So you could see in here, in all of this, if you can wade through all of the cringe and all of the demoralization, you could see the goal of this sort of language. The reason they're writing about in this way is they are desperately trying to manifest a violent response, a violent outburst from the right wing. And every single thing that happens, this is what's going on right now with I forgot at the very beginning of the show, I was going to mention what's going on with Gab and Andrew Torba. A recent friend of the show, Andrew Torba, let me pull this up. I feel bad for forgetting about this. So originally, July 24. So July 24, 6 days ago, Andrew Torba tweeted, approximately 30 minutes ago, Gab learned that Thomas Crooks, the deranged Joe Biden supporter who attempted to assassinate President Donald Trump, may have had an account on our platform. We are unable to confirm that the account in question actually belonged to him. The account was last active on the site in 2021. As far as we are aware, the account did not use the site to send any direct messages. He posted on the site 9 times total. While the account made very few posts on the site, the majority of them were in support of President Biden. A number of posts in particular expressed support for President Biden's COVID lockdowns, border policies, and executive orders. We've saved the account data pending receipt of a search warrant. And so he's got some of the posts here from his from the account. He said, we're disclosing this information at significant personal and business risk. If the past is any guide, defying the DC consensus by publishing the first definitive evidence that the shooter was a Biden supporter, something Democrats and their media allies have tried to cover up and deny at every turn, has a high probability of resulting in significant political and media backlash. In the past, we've been the target of politically motivated inquiries from both the House Oversight Committee and the Joint Committee on the January 6th attacks, both of which sought to interfere with our mission of protecting free speech online. The enemies of freedom have the ability to impose significant present and future legal costs, and any donations we receive will help to defray those costs. If you wish to support our endeavors, kindly consider donating to Gab. Donate.gab.com. If you have anything to donate, please do. Go support them. He's got some more screenshots. The guy's handle was Epic Microwave. He said some more context. The reason we know is because we received an emergency disclosure request from a law enforcement agency. So the most recent update now, this morning, the FBI is now claiming that the Trump shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks had an unspecified, quote, social media account in 2019 and 2020 when he was 14 and 15 years old that posted, quote, anti-immigrant and anti-Semitic content. So initially, he has no social media footprint. He's been scrubbed. He just doesn't have anything, no data anywhere. Then it turns out that he actually has an account on Gab, and the account shows him being pro-Biden. And so now, mysteriously, the FBI have to have a press conference, or they have to like make a public statement saying, oh, he has an unspecified social media account somewhere. It's unconfirmed if it's actually him, not releasing what platform it was on. But there he posted anti-immigrant and anti-Semitic content. He says, this is not consistent with Gab's understanding of the shooter's motives based on an emergency disclosure request we received from the FBI last week for the Gab account Epic Microwave, which, based on the content of that EDR, the FBI appeared to think belonged to Thomas Crooks. Many, particularly regime media supporters, have doubted Gab's claim that this request existed. Normally, we don't confirm the existence or content of law enforcement communications. In this instance, we had to make an exception due to the overwhelming public interest in disclosure and transparency. As a courtesy to law enforcement, we are not going to post the entire request. This is the first page of that request. The story is this. The account for which the data was requested was unequivocally pro-Biden and in particular pro-Biden's immigration policy. To the best of Gab's knowledge, as of 2021, Crooks was a pro-lockdown, pro-immigration, left-wing Joe Biden supporter. So this is the emergency disclosure request sent from the FBI to Gab. Here's the video.
Some and social media accounts. Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature. While the investigative team is still working to verify this account to determine if it did in fact belong to the shooter, we believe it important to share and note it today, particularly given the general absence of other information to date from social media and other sources of information that reflect on the shooter's potential motive and mindset. These are the facts, in part, that the investigation has revealed to date. While the shooter is dead, our work is very much ongoing and urgent.
All right, so obviously, as Pascal says here, these Torba posts are an epic felting of them trying to pin Crooks on right-wing extremism, and Torba's intel is more current than the fake profiles they just threw together. Right, the fact that they're having it's such an obvious op. It's such an obvious reactive op. And them being reactive is there's a lot that we can learn from that. It's very telling of their posture and how this sort of thing is being. They're very ham-handedly trying to put together this narrative, but honestly, a lot of people don't really care that much. They're trying to force out this like, oh, see, he was a right-wing extremist, but it's so flimsy. They're having such a hard time actually putting together that, and there's not like lots of coverage on this and everyone's digging into it and it's the major trending story. That could change. There could be something that comes out that forces it and the whole media all picks it back up again. This is what they do. But with each of these sorts of things, what they're not doing is almost as telling as what they are doing. This is so flimsy. But flimsy and incompetent as it may be, you've also got the cornered animal effect. And we should be praying for Andrew Torba and Gab. Because if they really want to, they can make life very, very hard on him. And they're in a position where they could easily get really malicious with this. So pray for them, support them if you can. $5 super chat, Canadian from Slosher. He says, people who believed Russia's Pissgate and Crooks being right-wing are the same ones who are falling for the couch story and 51 intelligence experts. Right. And I think the great thing that is happening now is, with the takeover of Twitter and the opening of the American conversation, so to speak, what were once going to be fringe little attempts to counter the narrative are now being amplified publicly by more and more people. More and more people who are gaining more and more market share, who are calling the regime on their bullshit. They have their own reasons for it, but the regime is giving them lots of ways to be a regime opponent right now. And to get back to what I was saying before, in all of these cases, you can see exactly what they want. They want right-wing people to get violent. That's their saving grace. Their saving grace is if they can get right-wing people to get violent, because you could see how quickly that narrative is going to be developed. If anybody gives them material, that narrative it's going to get pieced together and spun out from the ramparts immediately. So don't give them any material. Let them spin and dangle and hang. This is a segue into the Kamala weird stuff. First of all, before we do that, I had one last where is it here? One last JD Vance thing. So apparently, an excerpt from the book. After her funeral, the convoy departed for Keck, a holler not far from where Mama was born that housed our family's cemetery. In family lore, Keck held an even higher place of honor than Mama's birthplace. Her own mother, our beloved Mama Blanton, was born in Keck, and Mama Blanton's younger sister, Aunt Bonnie, nearly 90 herself, owned a beautiful log cabin on the same property. So, J.D. Vance's family graveyard is located in Keck Holler. We're back. I don't even know. I bookmarked this. I don't even know what this video is. Oh, that's so good. I'm glad it's just 4 minutes of just that. Meme magic is real indeed. The memes are so powerful. That's one thing that they just can't do. They cannot beat our memes. Every time they try to, they just give us more and better content for our memes. So the most recent one, I'm sorry. I have to, just so everyone knows what we're talking about, I have to expose you to a little cringe here. But this video, everyone was talking about this, and I saw this chick's face, and I was like, God, I don't want to hear this woman. Finally, curiosity got the best of me, and I watched it. So I'm just going to play it for you real quick.
Ariel Fodor, affectionately known as Mrs. Frazzle, to her combined audience of over 1.5 million followers, is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. This is a really important time, and we all need to use our voices and influence for the greater good. No matter who you are all influencers in some way. So tonight, I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself. We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other. But don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized. And
15 seconds. You're almost there.
In order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots. You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
Oh man. Oh man. uh you guys, if you really wanted me, I shouldn't tell you. I shouldn't tell you. There's nothing that's more entertaining to me than watching the chat just completely melt down with one of these. I'm sorry for abusing you guys so. Vi says, if I can endure that, I can endure anything. Andrew said this must be how George Floyd felt. Oh my God. No, I'm not sorry at all. Okay, I want to. Straight Buster says, "Why do you guys hate this? This is such a good sign." Yes, yes. How can you possibly be demoralized when they're stooping this far? So I've got a number of tweets related to this and a few different things. So first of all, what I said here was, this is the biggest electoral alley-oop of all time. If the Trump team doesn't make this woman the official mascot of the DNC, they're clearly sabotaging him. Imagine the Midwest hearing her voice in their heads every time they see Kamala. Like, just pin this woman to Kamala. Everywhere Kamala goes, this woman is following her around. They may even be dumb enough to do this themselves. This is the ultimate in pandering directly to the base. I had another, yes, this here. The Kamala's campaign is being spearheaded by gays, wine-aunts, and unmarried educators should be taken as clear evidence the power brokers have left the room and they're flipping over chairs and trash cans behind them. To be clear, gays, wine-aunts, and unmarried educators is a powerful constituency in its own right, but making them the main event is not something you do when you have other options at your disposal. They're in regroup and obstruct mode and need to be treated as such. So I think we need to get really good at holding two ideas in our hands at the same time that may seem to disprove one another. One of them is the fact that they have done everything that they've done to this point shows that they're running out of options. Getting to the point where they're actually spearheading, like Kamala's campaigning on Zoom, leaning into the most cringy aspects of her base imaginable, because that's the only base that she has. This is a great white pill. This is a sign of how desperate they are, how backed into a corner they are. On the flip side, they still have a tremendous amount of money to work with. If there are autists out there, the types who hunted down Shia LaBeouf's They Will Not Divide Us, a very interesting thing would be to go, all this money that was donated to Kamala over the last, what is it, like $200 million or something recently? I think I have a thread coming up here in a little bit talking about it. I'd like to see some of this autistic meme energy digging in to see where all this money is flowing to. I read the Time Magazine article last week from February of 2021 where they described how they built up the election fortification network. All the different organizations that they used, and they were talking about it ahead of time. The signs were all there. We have people who are openly talking about how they're going to use illegal immigrants to their electoral advantage, I suppose. They're willing to amplify these kinds of narratives. Chief among them would be the CEO of the town square. So if our guys can get digging into all of this and start tracing these ahead of time, this is where the meme magic can be used to great advantage for us. So on one hand, recognize this as a white pill. Recognize that this reveals how cornered and desperate they are. But that doesn't make them less dangerous. There's still a tremendous amount of money, and they have the radical ideologue willpower motivating them. So they can't be underestimated at the same time. We have to stay on our guard. Let me see what are the other ones I had here. This one. So with the weird. For those who don't know, the whole thing going on now is that they're weird. Republicans are weird. JD Vance is weird. Trump is weird. And I thought I had a video. There was like a bunch of video compilations. And okay, yeah, here, this one. And I'll come back and read the tweet that's associated with it because I've got a couple tweets I want to go through.
Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are. As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance.
Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate, they're weird. Deeply and profoundly weird. They are weird.
These Republicans just being weird. It's just weird. It's really weird.
Republican weirdness goes even deeper.
He said a lot of things that are weird, a weird style that he brings, weird policies.
I want to start with the weird thing, because it is a thing.
Just plain weird.
What was weird was talking about Diet Mountain Dew. Who drinks Diet Mountain Dew?
You ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior.
Weird and cultish.
These are weird people on the other side.
He kind of doubled down on his weird ideas.
I think weird is probably generous.
Simply weird. These guys are just plain weird. Vance as weird?
You know, as the...
Okay, so that's just half of the video. You get the idea. Weird, 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 weird. Obviously, these are obviously the talking points that have been sent out. And who would come up with these talking points? Like, what faction is going to sit down and say, you know what we should do? We should start getting all of the TikTok influencers and all the media people. We should send them all the email coordinating and saying, weird, weird. Hit them as weird. It's so obviously an AstroTurf thing. Which people are going to come up with that? Those are the people who are running this show, which means someone else isn't running the show. Do you realize how weird and how discordant it is to go from Trump is literally Hitler to Trump is weird? Weird is like weird, huh? Weird. It provokes curiosity. It's kind of like, huh? Weird. Weird? There's a weird thing? What's that weird thing? I want to see the weird thing. This is preposterously poor politically. Whoever's doing this has no idea what they're doing. I said Trump is literally Hitler as a progression to Trump is weird strikes me as a progression from anger/depression to bargaining. It seems incredibly poorly conceived as an attack vector for making inroads with anyone but dyed-in-the-wool shit-libs. I'm with the weird guy is much less psychologically difficult to process for a normie than I'm with literally Hitler. Trump is weird. Yeah, isn't he great? It's silly to me that they think that this is going to be like this is supposed to somehow, this is their great rally the troops effort. This is what's going to pull the normies away from Trump. If anything, it just makes him more likable. Wait, so now he's not literally Hitler anymore? He's just kind of weird? Well, I don't know. Things are kind of weird right now. Let's see what the weird people think. It's much more mellow and not... It seems to me like the type of thing that you would do if you were a bunch of, I don't know, bougie white chicks, bougie white millennial chicks, and gay guys, theater kids, who live in your little bubble, completely cordoned off from the rest of the world, the type of guy who James O'Keefe was undercover talking to, the gay cybersecurity engineer dude from the executive branch. They're like, oh, what should we do? We'll call him weird. Yeah, because all my friends, if it was weird, I'd be like, that's weird. Yeah, that's what we should do. Let's call him weird. Just call him weird, and everybody will get it. They'll just get it. People don't like stuff that's weird. These are the people that are running the show. What does that mean? That means the actual power brokers, the actual people that understand politics, that are seriously trying to run a campaign, are no longer on the scene. They've pulled out for one reason or another. I'm not saying they've pulled out as in they're no longer giving money or they're no longer invested in the campaign. I'm saying the campaign's running itself now. They're like, go do your thing. And if you can manage to get it across the line, then you're going to have our full support right away. But this is like obstructionist territory now. This is the Kamala campaign beginning to act like an opposition party that's out of power. That's how I read it. Shout out to Harry Bergeron at Tysonberg on Twitter. A great follow. Good friend of mine. So first we're going to read this Dudley New Right post thing because I think he's exactly right. And then Harry Bergeron's response is funny. He says, this is now a core Dem strategy. So you got the mean girls here. Mean girl shaming of cons as weirdos who are not having a normal one. The shallow explanation is that, like James Carville recently admitted, the Dem machine is now run by and for women, and that's how women get what they want. But at a deeper level, I suspect they recognize that they've spent the last decade burning through their credibility by championing people and ideas and images that normies see as extremely freakish despite wall-to-wall propaganda. The Dems are now the party of gay pride piss play and kid castration and twerking senators and post-ops flashing kids at the White House. They overplayed their hand with this stuff and they know it. This is their attempt to brute force a sentiment reversal, but for some reason, I don't think you're being weird is going to work for these people anymore. And then Harry Bergeron says, I say we keep detailed records of any man that succumbs to this so we can break into their houses and mercilessly beat them with bars of soap and tube socks before slipping away into the night while releasing a PSA saying anyone who shows up to work with bruises is a homosexual. Wait a second. Why am I not following him? I wonder if I stopped following some people when I lost my blue check. That's very interesting. Okay, so then another thing that's happening is I haven't followed this super closely, so you can't come to me for the deep insight about what's going on here. But Venezuela is falling apart again. They're doing their like every decade it seems like Venezuela has to have a total meltdown, and this is not strictly because of Venezuelans. Venezuela is a prime hotspot for regime activity, and this has all the markings of a color revolution. So Chuck Cayesto says, shock report. Scenes of imminent civil war continue to emerge out of Venezuela. Maduro's army now purportedly firing on civilians. So it just continues like that for another 13 seconds. My first response on seeing that video was, that's a shitload of people. That's a lot of people. Just sitting here for 30 seconds or whatever, just watching people sprinting by. There's a lot of people. Pray for Venezuela, man. The overwhelming majority of these people, like, they don't deserve this. They don't deserve to live in these conditions. Their country has been just completely ransacked by the regime. Thrown into absolute chaos. Now, shout out to the first citizen, Frank Butcher, on Twitter. He says, not blackpilling, but I don't think it takes a genius to see that they're probably coming here, unfortunately. And I said, most likely, but I wouldn't be happy about that if I was a Democrat. I can't think of many things that would be worse for Kamala electorally than a massive uptick in the border crisis. If the regime is in control and competent, they'll be dialing it down. They're not, and not. I'm very curious to see what's playing out here because Elon and Eric Prince have both been very outspoken about what's going down there. Elon tweeted something to the effect of, if the military supports the people, supports the will of the people, then Maduro is done for. And it's just, I don't know, there's something about this that possibly it's in a kind of a macabre way because I don't want to, see people having their homes and lives destroyed and be like, oh, white pill. But this could be evidence of the regime just really lashing out in desperation at this point. Because if they're trying to provoke a color revolution to send another army to the southern border, the immigration issue is already something that's wildly unpopular for them. It just amplifies the border czar thing, which is probably one of the worst electoral issues for Kamala. And I don't see this as a competent regime that's like, oh, we're going to cause all of this instability and chaos at the border And if anything, that would be an indicator that they think that Trump is, they're just preemptively now sticking Trump with a major crisis. But I think this falls in line with, however you read it, as the regime is rapidly realigning things in a way of like someone who's running away from someone and they're like knocking shit down behind him as they're trying to get away. That's how it strikes me. I could be wrong, but this does not strike me as like some elaborate regime plot to ultimately get what they want. Because I've talked about before about the Black Swan events, and I was proven right with the assassination attempt. Like every single Black Swan event that happens just makes the regime more and more unpopular. It gives them less and less power, makes them more and more unstable. Because everyone's already upset and tired of all the instability and the unsettledness and the anxiety and the stress. So the more that happens, the more that's provoked, the weaker and weaker the regime gets, and the more and more people are willing to just say, all right, all of you guys out, give us new leadership. Okay. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple more things. How far are we in here? 2 hours? Okay, we'll go through these. So, first of all, I want to highlight this guy, Sticker Mule. This is a cool channel, or a cool account to follow. It's they make stickers, like just exactly what it sounds like. But their CEO has become more and more outspokenly pro-Trump, and he's taken a bunch of shit for it. There was he did a giveaway of what the hell? Did a big giveaway of a bunch of a Cybertruck a little while back, and he's gotten a bunch of heat. Here we go. We're giving away a Cybertruck.
We're giving away a Cybertruck because why not? But this is not a regular Cybertruck. It's a Cyber Beast. To be totally honest, I don't even know what the fuck that is. But I'm told it's expensive. Anyways, to enter to win, just repost this on X and follow us so we can DM you if you win. If this goes well, maybe we give away another Cybertruck or something better. Just like this driving lawnmower. I love driving lawnmower.
It's been fun following him. He's very outspoken politically, and people go into his mention or go into his DMs talking shit to him, and he'll like screenshot him and then talk shit on the timeline about him. Anyway, so he says, I don't understand the current bizarre play to be mean by calling Trump supporters weird, which at least is kinder than deplorable. My whole life, I made it a point to seek out weirdness. Weird people and weird moments make weird stories. People love my stories. Like the time I started Sticker Mule Italy because I met an Italian on live chat. That was weird, but today 100 plus people work for Sticker Mule Italy. Or the time I dared our team to make hot sauce as a joke. That was weird, but today we distribute 1 million bottles of mule sauce per year. Or the time I wrote an email to everyone on our list and came out as a Trump supporter. That was weird, and so was the reaction, but now our brand is stronger than ever. Or the time I was at a Starbucks in Manhattan and a guy walked in selling pickles. That was weird, but actually never mind, I won't get into that. Anyways, weird is a silly insult to hurl at Trump supporters. Weird is cool. Weird is interesting. Weird makes for great stories. I don't understand the current bizarre play to be mean by calling Trump supporters weird. I guess I should be happy about it. It's kinder than deplorable and all the other nasty slurs they use. But still bizarre. Anthony Constantino, co-founder Sticker Mule. P.S. I want max happiness for all, even people who call other people weird. So he's very wholesome. Very wholesome kind of... I don't know. It's like a different character for a political activist, CEO, conservative, right wing characteristic. It strikes me as like an older Gen X versus Boomer kind of mentality. But his social media game is really good, and this sort of thing, like little blips here and there, like that tweet has gotten 1.5 million views. I think it said. This sort of thing is good. Keep amplifying this. Anytime you see that. Push it out, boost it. All of us working together can really manipulate the algorithm right now, and we can promote these wholesome, normal things, and get that perspective to catch on with more people. and as a counter to the actual weirdness. Another one here, Alex Castellanos. Alex, never heard of this guy, but I like what he's saying. Cuban-American cigar smoker, freedom-loving conservative, writer, co-founder of Purple Strategies. Lucky guy. He says, today, many cigars, many thoughts. And I'll start with this. These may be Kamala Harris's salad days, a phrase coined long ago in a star-crossed Shakespearean tragedy. These are her moments of innocence, idealism, and possibility. I suspect they're the best days her campaign will know. To her credit, Harris is not only riding a wave of relief that the Democratic nominee is not Joe Biden, she is surprising doubters. Harris inspires crowds with disciplined teleprompter speeches in which she exceeds the demands of her introduction. She brings excitement to young voters, ravenous for generational change that neither Biden nor Donald Trump can offer. She's compared to Barack Obama. Republicans are nervous. Her numbers in some public polls have soared. Unfortunately for her campaign, the election is not tomorrow, and Harris is not an empty vessel for the incumbent party's hopes. There's an existing Kamala Harris. She has a record. And when America votes in 100 days, the entire package, policy, and persona will be known. Certainly her campaign will spend hundreds of millions of dollars presenting her as the embodiment of hope and change, and the leader of a new and improved generation of centrist Democrats. She will also receive billions of dollars of laudatory coverage from a fawning media establishment that will multiply her fishes and loaves. A smart, disciplined, and focused Trump campaign will push back, painting Harris as both more dangerously liberal than Joe Biden and naively incompetent. Yet in the end, Harris's failure or success won't be determined by these old forces. If she falls, it will be to the new third force in politics, her lifetime of video on social media. It's monstrously powerful and more muscular than politics could hope. Harris is the job applicant who shouldn't have uploaded everything to Facebook. She is America's first near Gen X candidate. TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram have carved everything Harris has ever said and supported into ageless digital stone. As she runs against Donald Trump, the new Kamala Harris must also run against the old Kamala Harris, preserved forever on our devices. Unfortunately for her campaign, she can add to her social media identity but not subtract from it, because the internet, unlike some politicians, forgets nothing. In the political world, many Democrats know the Kamala Harris captured so vividly on social media. They've said behind closed doors, and even in some instances in public, that she is their party's weakest alternative to Joe Biden. They know Harris in full. Soon, we will too. Click once and Harris says crossing the border illegally should not be illegal. Click again and she raises her hand to offer illegal immigrants free health care. Click once more and she's the border czar on whose watch 8 million crossed the border illegally. Click again and she claims she wasn't the border czar. The memes explode. Maybe she wasn't vice president? Maybe she doesn't know Joe Biden? Click. Harris advocates bailing out radicals who have burned cities and attacked policemen. She has created a rich digital stream supporting every woke policy that makes the heartland fear for its country. In a social media world beyond her control, Kamala Harris is already defined as a woman of the extreme left whose capacity to deal with the world's problems is doubtful. Proof? In less than 4 years, without negative ads running against her, Harris has already become the most unpopular vice president in recent history, thanks to her remarkable ability to generate extraordinary leftist social media content. Her opponents don't need AI to generate negative material. Harris excels at the job. Harris will excite the academic left, thrill the dominant media, gain support from those under 35, and deliver the reproductive rights vote. But in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, her social media identity has already alienated working-class blue-collar voters. Her path to 270 is smoke. Her unpopularity is not due to her race, giggles, or gender. It's the product of her party's failure. The beliefs in which she persists have made our streets unsafe, our rent too expensive, and our groceries too costly. She's the emblem of an administration whose weakness has exposed us to wars with Russia, China, and radical Islam. She's the internet poster child for unthinking liberalism and its abundance of disastrous results. Newt Gingrich is right. This race is Nixon versus McGovern. If Harris loses, she'll become the face of the Democratic Party's liberalism and irresponsibility for decades. She'll be remembered as the hood ornament of an old, failed liberal ideology so out of touch with the American mainstream that it was beyond a fresh face's ability to restore. Can she evolve? Can she respond to public demand for a Democratic Party of the center with a last-moment deathbed conversion? It's not impossible. She would have to demonstrate both the talent and gravitas of Barack Obama. She would need to reject everything she has been and believed, in the face of a mountain of social media that already labels her inauthentic. Like holding up flowers in a hurricane, reinventing Harris will be a tough trick to pull off. Could this still be a close race? Of course. Harris will have brilliant moments. A centrist vice presidential pick and 2 Obama speeches at her convention will extend the glow of her announcement. And any race against Trump is a toss-up. The former president is always his own most effective adversary. He may be the only presidential candidate in history who could lose without an opponent. Today, in the spring of her campaign, Kamala Harris is hope without the inconvenience of her leftist history. She is what can be unburdened by what has been, the embodiment of her favorite cliche, and there is no doubt she's a talented candidate on a roll. We've been here before. General George Patton wrote that for 1,000 years, victorious Roman conquerors returned home to celebratory parades. Palm fronds were laid where they could step, so their feet would not touch the ground, and adulatory crowds would roar. But behind the conqueror, there was always stood a centurion whispering in his ear this warning: all glory is fleeting. In November, it will be colder, and we will all know Kamala Harris in full. So you could tell from the writing style and the takes and everything, this is very much a boomer, or at least an old Gen Xer. What's going on, cocaine weird?
Hey. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Are you weird?
Dude, I want one of those shirts so bad. I think I might.
Which one?
I think I might. The ones that say Trump is weird. That like all the shit lib.
Oh yeah.
Oh dude. I might have to donate some money to Kamala's campaign so I can get one of those shirts.
Yeah. Did you remember we were talking about a little project last night? Did you happen to get around to that at all?
No, I didn't, because Xavier and I went to the gym last night, and then we were up until midnight talking about the Wheel of Time. Because I can't help myself.
No problem.
But
no problem.
I'll do that today.
Yeah. Okay. So another thread. Giving you kind of a lot of different perspectives on this today. They're sort of uniting around a certain couple points, but focusing on, I think it's useful to see some of the more normie perspectives on some of this. Now, this is not one of the normies, Vagrant of Rhodes. He says, this is regarding this video of the new programming. This is the same video we played a little bit ago about everything being weird. Quick thread. The regime is desperate to reset narrative control after its recent failures. Trump's miraculous assassination survival and the Biden coup have deepened their desperation. Weird is a vain attempt to exploit all tools in their kit to reboot the minds of their NPCs. They seek a certain comfort in the familiar, pining for the nostalgic heady days where a CNN segment or an FBI memo would sway hearts and minds, when talking points would do the job that their hands are so incapable of doing, when control was easy and simple for them. But the vibe has shifted. Even the regime with all its prowess cannot turn back time. Most people no longer even care for this type of narrative pantomime. The frenzied pace of our media consumption via technology works against these efforts, confounding the regime's designs. You've got the Chad Mike Lindell. In The Medium is the Message, Marshall McLuhan writes about this deluge of information and its effects, overwhelming the public with information, sowing distrust. Man has begun to shift his methods of interpretation to match the technological advancements of communication. So reading from The Medium is the Message. We've had to shift our stress of attention from action to reaction. We must now know in advance the consequences of any policy or action, since the results are experienced without delay. Because of the electric speed, we can no longer wait and see. George Washington once remarked, "We haven't heard from Benjamin Franklin in Paris this year. We should write him a letter." At the high speeds of electric communication, purely visual means of apprehending the world are no longer possible. They're just too slow to be relevant or effective. Unhappily, we confront this new situation with an enormous backlog of outdated mental and psychological responses. We have been left dangling. Our most impressive words and thoughts betray us. They refer us only to the past, not to the present. Electric circuitry profoundly involves men with one another. Information pours upon us instantaneously and continuously. As soon as information is acquired, it is very rapidly replaced by still newer information. Our electrically configured world has forced us to move from the habit of data classification to the mode of pattern recognition. We can no longer build serially, block by block, step by step, because instant communication ensures that all factors of the environment and of experience coexist in a state of active interplay. The weird narrative play is an attempt to regain control, to impose a return to the imperial decrees of what is and what isn't, what was and what shall be. To wage a war on truth and memory itself. To hack human consciousness and program the masses in a certain direction. This appeal is stunted by the corruption of the longhouse and the needs of the cathedral. Weird is a half measure, an attempt to find a new source of ammunition when more expensive casings have been spent in haste. It tries in haste to subvert the old narrative structures. Ultimately, it cannot do so because its users fail to understand the technology they wield. The brainworms and visual cues of this propaganda campaign, Vance looks weird. Look, Vance looks creepy, or families are weird, or Trump got hit by glass, not a bullet, are old schemes and fake new packaging. McLuhan knew not only where we were, but where we were going. The era of the telegram, radio, and television was a unique period which saw a resurgence of imperial control of media and a direct manipulation of its viewers through the ether. But this was only a fatal mirage. In the end, the regime is the same as it's always been. Greedy, desperate, corrupt, and overconfident. As McLuhan writes, the future masters of technology will have to be lighthearted and intelligent. The machine easily masters the grim and dumb. They've lost their mandate. Their once clever schemes now seem somewhat pathetic. Trump is literally Hitler, has morphed into Trump is kind of icky. This degradation is profound. It does not imply strength, but rather belies a certain desperation. The world is changing and they're failing to keep pace.
What would you call that, the chick on the left there? What would you call that physiognomy? I know there are chicks I grew up with or that I went to school with who look almost exactly like that, and they're temperamentally basically the same as well.
It looks like it has what's the steroid that chicks take a lot that makes their faces get all puffy, kind of like moon shaped. It's right on the tip of my tongue. It's that. Whoever, anyone in the chat, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Botox?
No, it's not Botox. I think it's probably like PCOS face, maybe.
Prednisone?
Prednisone, yes, thank you, prednisone. It makes their faces get all like their cheeks all puffy and kind of moon-shaped faces.
I don't like it.
Yeah, me neither. Like the narrowness of her teeth and the wideness of her mouth is creepy.
They kind of got this like the way her laugh lines come up around her nose makes it look like she's kind of like snarling a little bit when she smiles.
Uh-huh.
It looks rather like untrustworthy or shifty. It seems kind of like this should be some hand wringing as well.
Uh-huh. That was one thing, like when she came up on the screen on the video I played earlier, you can just you've said the two hard sciences, physiognomy and phrenology.
Yeah.
This, like, with people like this, there's some people that it couldn't be clearer. Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, is another one of them.
Witch, Eric Winters. You're totally right. That's like the witch physiognomy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we're pronouncing it now. Physiognomy. In any case, that's the witch. That's totally it.
Uh-huh.
Put a black hat on her. That's a witch.
Yeah. As soon as you see her, like you know her personality, you know her values, you know how she behaves, the way she talks, like all of it. You don't have to. You can see a still shot of her and you know it exactly.
Yeah, get in the oven, kids.
Same with this guy. Just it's not conceivable for me. I can't imagine a reality where this guy was like a good person. Maybe it makes me a bad person for saying that, but just
what's the there's that saying, I don't know where it comes from. I've just heard it said that like you end up with the face you deserve. By the end of your life.
Yep. Yeah. Proof.
So some people just kind of grow into lizard fucking they eat babies. I don't know, man.
All right, continuing this Vagrant of Rhodes thread. He says, they try to co-opt new media, but these are sad imitations. Schizo edits of Harris feel surrealist and absurd, while schizo edits of Trump feel powerful and fun. Mimetics are potent, and while they can be artificial, they are most effective based on real life. Gotta see these images. He's so great, man. What an image. The mimicry of paying TikTok users $150 to make posts about Harris is indicative of decadent ignorance. The weird narrative is exposed as old world astroturfing because that's what it is. But in the electronic era, man seeks out a return to the old forms of understanding. Myth and legend, tribal loyalty, aesthetics, strength, and honor become guideposts in the storm of chaos, beacons for weary brains buried in mountains of electronic data. We seek refuge in the familiar, burdened as we are by a knowledge we neither earned nor fully understand. I wouldn't pump my fist if somebody shot at me. That's why no one will remember your name. In this way, the genuine memetics of Trump are far more powerful without effort or super PAC cash than a million propaganda campaigns from regime stooges like Harris. They're trying to harness solar winds with a bedsheet while Trump rides Apollo's chariot to the sun. Do not underestimate the power of the enemy. While their techniques are a bit dated, they do adapt, as with the coup and use of AI, and they possess immense power over the existing media landscape, which still retains a healthy influence over initial narrative formation. Get his Twitter account, post the letter. Did you see this one here? The lady, Washington Post reporter, who tweeted this picture at a Harris rally? Yeah.
Yeah, and you got that guy back there who looks like where's Waldo?
Yeah. This lady's face is all jacked up, and some people try to say, "Oh, well, that's just like an artifact of the iPhone." When I've got an iPhone. I can literally pull my phone up right now and look at a picture of a crowd and zoom in, and their face doesn't look like somebody smudged the paint on it. It makes it blurry, but it doesn't make it get all like and Picasso-y.
It does kind of look like a painting.
Yeah, what I'm sure it was like generative AI in Photoshop or something like that. That they they had an initial picture that had people in it, and then they said like add people to this image, which is funny. But things are changing. The elites are getting less mileage out of their efforts. They have to expend more fuel to get a remnant of their former narrative fire. The old ways are intruding on the mind through electronic storms, heroes being born amidst the smoke. And then Aristophanes said, weird is a concept in Anglo-Saxon culture roughly corresponding to fate or personal destiny. The word is ancestral to modern English weird, whose meaning has drifted toward an adjectival use with a more general sense of supernatural or uncanny or simply unexpected. I believe there is language. There is power in language. The words themselves have some sort of a supernatural characteristic to them. Oilfield Rando said, I just can't imagine living like these people, making a living just repeating whatever the emails tell you to. It's just plain sad. I assume it gradually hollows them out and erases their sense of self. It has to.
Which, by the by, our dear friends, you are also susceptible to.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful. Stay vigilant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are. It's easy to fall into a new Borg, to fall out of a Borg, or to try to avoid a Borg and wind up falling into a new Borg. And there's a Borg manufacturing industry that is has been spun up, and it's operating at a high level right now. The dialectics are very, very tempting, very easy to fall into. You don't want to fall into those.
Can I share my favorite example of the new emerging right-wing NPC?
Yes.
So this happened to me the other day. Yesterday morning, I was on Twitter, as I'm wont to do, and I see a post posted by some shit lib or whatever of Trump, and they're showing like the right side of him, and they're zoomed in on his head from the right side, and they're like, whoa. You know, it's one of these blue anon crazy people, or there was no assassination attempt, or it was all faked, it was all staged, or whatever. See, look, his ear is perfectly fine. And the wild thing was, it's like, okay, how would you respond to that? If you're a reasonable person who's connected to reality, you would just reverse image search the picture and be like, oh, this is an old picture, which it was. This is just an old picture. And this person's either delusional because they're a shit lib, or they're
just
trying
lying.
to be subversive, or yeah, maybe they're just rage engagement bait or whatever. That had like 300 comments in it, that post. I saw like 2 or 3 comments that were like, yo, this picture's an old picture. Those are people who are in reality. You have the person who posted this saying like, oh, see, look, the assassination attempt was totally staged. They're not in reality. you had 3 people at the time I saw this who were like, this is an old picture. Those 3 people are in reality. Then you had like 100 posts from, I'll just say our guys, because they all had the dark MAGA profile pictures. And they were all saying, are you blind? Look at his ear wound. They were all saying something along those lines. And if it were just 1 or 2, I'd think you were trolling or fucking with them or something like that. But it was literally like 100, 120 guys, I presume guys, who were looking at this picture of Trump and I presume are deluded enough or are just picking up on like, you know, or maybe they're kind of doing this sort of mimetic thing where they see one person say something, they're just picking. I don't know what's going on. In any case, so our guys are looking at the same picture and saying, look, there is a wound on Trump's ear. So you have the lefties, the shit libs, who are not in reality. You have our guys who have also slipped off into non-reality if they're looking at the same picture. And then you have 2 or 3 people who are like, this is an old picture, and me who's looking at all of this transpire, and I'm like, everyone's lost their minds. There's like 3 people here who knows what's going on.
Tell the story about the Sam Shamoon thing that you told me about.
Oh, I remember that. That was... So Sam Shamoon, love him or hate him, he's certainly got a personality. I was watching one of his streams a long time ago.
He's like an Orthodox adjacent. I don't know if he's Orthodox or if he's.
I think he's a Syrian.
Oriental.
Syrian. He's
okay.
Oriental. Yeah.
But he does a lot of Orthodox apologetics and stuff, especially dealing with modalists and
Jehovah's Witness,
yeah,
Muslims, stuff like that. In any case, I was watching one of his streams quite a while ago, and he was arguing with some Jehovah's Witness or something like that. Well, Mela says he's Catholic. Well, if he's Catholic, then that's a new development. Maybe he's Catholic. I don't know. Last I knew, he was in the Assyrian church. In any case, he's arguing with some Jehovah's Witness or some modalist or something like that. And he's doing his usual thing where he's browbeating these people because they call in to argue with him, and then he browbeats them, and then he takes them to the part in scripture where he's like, okay, here, you're going to read this section out loud for all of us to hear, and there's a particular verse in there I want you to focus on because it's going to undermine your argument, because that's kind of his big thing. He knows the Bible like the back of his freaking hand, and he certainly has a gift for that. Anyway, he has this dude read this. I don't remember what it was, but he had him reading a paragraph or a section of scripture. And he read through it out loud, nice and slowly. And then Sam had him read it again. Read it again. Read it again. And it happened like 5 or 6 times that this dude read this passage of scripture before basically what had happened is the one verse that Sam wanted him to see, he was just skipping over completely inadvertently. He'd read all the way up to the verse right before the end of the verse, right before that verse. He'd skip right to the next one and read that. It was like his brain was unable to process because of all of his priors or his spiritual delusion or whatever it was, just being kind of captured by his worldview. The one thing that Sam wanted him to see, he literally could not see it until Sam had him read it like 6 times in a row. And he finally, progressively getting more and more angry and yelling at him and browbeating him. And the guy finally reads it and he sees it. He's like, oh, whoa, I've never seen that verse before. And that really stuck with me, that interaction, because I'm like, it was really impressive to me that, like, wow, we can really get deluded. And I remember sharing that story with Matt yesterday as a prelude to telling him the story about what I just told you guys with that Twitter interaction, where there's a bunch of libs who are clearly deluded. It seems like there's a bunch of our guys who are also just they're doing the NPC thing. They're all saying the same variation of, like, what are you talking about? His ear is there's a wound on his ear. Look at the scar. And I'm looking at the same picture that all these people are looking at. And I did a reverse image search. Yes, it was just an old picture. So they're all fucking insane. And this was kind of unsettling to me, where I'm like, okay, guys, our guys, you guys are getting on the dark MAGA train and stuff like that. Be careful that you're not like just porting your agency into some Borg that could go in a direction you don't want.
This is a
pre-list.
When,
Yes, Melon.
yeah, pre-list, yeah. When the past few years after I encountered Orthodoxy and started learning a whole bunch of stuff about it and becoming immersed in Orthodox communities and stuff, one of the things that that comes up all the time is this idea of both and, that you have, there's so many dialectics that we're confronted with today that try to force you to choose either or. And sometimes it's not either or. And the dialectic is a trap, getting you to sit and debate a certain issue, a particular point. Like, is his ear, like in this case, is his ear, is this, in this picture, does his ear have a wound or does it not have a wound? That does not matter. That debate doesn't matter. That's a trap for you. That's trying to pull you in and get you exporting your agency to the force that's drawing you into that conversation in the first place.
There are demons afoot.
Yes.
And our side is totally ripe for the taking right now. Because everybody's like, oh yes, finally, we feel like we're winning. Finally, I get to say the thing I want to say. Finally, these fuckers get to be held to the standard that they've set for us. Finally, they get what's coming to them. There's that, you know, and I feel it. I feel that draw. I get it. It's really, it's refreshing and exciting. It's the vengeful spirit, the vengeful son. That's it's that spirit. It's really dangerous.
And when you give in to that, because it feels good and you feel gratified, you're like, yeah, I get my vengeance. Get my vengeance. I'm seeing these people get their just desserts.
Yeah,
that
blood
is
for the
black
blood
pilling.
gods. Blood for the blood gods.
That is under the category of black pilling. When you give yourself over to this spirit of vengeance and calling, like baying for blood, this bloodlust, you are feeding the regime. That's what the regime is trying to promote. This is like their last gasp, desperate hope is see if we can spark, if we can cultivate enough bloodlust so that we can cry out as they strike us. That is the motivating force. So when we say no fucking black pilling, that doesn't mean like all out assault, completely lose your minds and go running across the field screaming naked. Part of not black pilling is not giving over to this force that's trying to suck you into all out warfare, all out totalizing violence.
And it's important to like, as we're doing now, delineate what we mean when we say no black pilling. Because I'm seeing the no black pilling thing is kind of taking off in our circles of Twitter. And I think that's good. But the definition of what constitutes black pilling is really starting to narrow. And this is another thing to watch out for. Because black pilling does not mean like, you know, having a counter argument.
Yeah,
you know?
doesn't mean like leave your brain at the door.
Yeah. Or like stop listening to, you know, sensible people or maybe critiques, criticism, whatever. Even just flat out hostile actors. Like, still take this information in. Keep these data points coming in. Because as of right now, if black pilling constitutes like you are counter signaling in any way, or what I'm interpreting as counter signaling in any way, the movement that's going on right now, the energy that's going somewhere right now, you're getting blocked or you're getting, you know, excommunicated or whatever. If you're just going to kind of spin up this little, I hate the term echo chamber, but we'll call it that. If you're going to spin up this new sort of echo chamber where you're not going to listen to anybody who's going to dissent from your opinion, you're going to open yourself up not only to like spiritual capture or just capture by, I don't know, 3-letter agencies and social engineers. Same thing, maybe. But you're also just going to like open yourself up to being totally blindsided. Because if you're just going to sit in the tent with all of your buddies, you know, when the battlefield's right there and you got 1,000 shit libs, because Kamala, like, okay, wherever this money's coming from, maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. She did just get a bunch of fucking money. The Democrats have a lot of money. They have no, you know, the regime has plenty of money. They will never not have enough money. And they did a good job fortifying the last election. There's no reason why they couldn't do it again. And there's a lot of, like, I think, fair arguments why maybe that wouldn't fly this time, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. But just don't, I guess what I'm saying is don't box yourself in to a position where you could get blindsided by something that was obvious, but you didn't want to listen to it because, oh, they were blackpilling or they were counter-signaling, so I blocked them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
When I said
because then what happens, I'll just finish my point.
Yeah.
Because then what happens is like, okay, you get all this energy up and everyone's boxed themselves into a corner over here in right-wing Twitter sphere or whatever, and we're riding the train and we think, okay, we're riding to victory. And then the election, hypothetically or potentially, does get fortified. And our guys lose. Then what?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, what happens there? Do people just like, oh, get all deflated and go home and get, you know, or do people get violent? I don't know.
This is why
these are some of my concerns.
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned on the show the other day about the like black guys voting for Trump and how you just get this little debate, which is another one of these pointless little dialectical debates where people like, oh, Trump's going to win the black vote. Or Trump's not going to get the black vote. Or Trump's going to get more black guys. Trump's going to get less black guys. People sit and argue about this. I don't give a shit either way. But the point that I made was if post-election we look back and Trump got 20% of the black vote, there would be an easy explanation for that. People would just be like, oh, yeah, well, obviously there was this, and this. So it's like really contentious beforehand. But if it did happen, there'd be an easy explanation for it. If it didn't happen, there would also be an easy explanation for it. So like drilling down into this about it is a waste of time and energy. It's trying to suck it's sucking your vril, trying to get you invested in stuff that ultimately isn't something to be concerned about. It isn't something to spin out over. In the same way, no matter how the actual election results turn out, no matter what on January 30, no matter who the actual person who has the role of President of the United States of America, no matter who that is, there will be an easily mapped narrative people can retroactively go back to and say, oh, it was clear. You could see this coming all along. So we have to be able to hold both of these thoughts simultaneously. Number one, this is a matter of willpower and energy. And the side that is able to rally the most willpower and energy for its ends will be the one that succeeds. It'll ultimately come down to that moment. I was texting a friend of the show just the other day yesterday that I've got this sneaking suspicion that foreign leaders of major foreign nations weighing in on who they're going to recognize as the president may wind up playing a big part in this, which makes Kamala and Trump's respective relationships with Netanyahu rather interesting recently. But what actually determines the result at the end of the day is going to be which side has the greater appearance of strength and energy and ability to press forward and exist in that new world. So getting spun out and demoralized about, oh, well, they stole it before and they could do it again, and look at all these different reasons why it's going to happen, and you just need to get used to it. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment. That's blackpilling.
Yeah.
On the flip side, blocking everything out and saying, no, this is our last desperate hope and we can't possibly sanction the idea of anything going except for the way we want it to go, and we're going to blindly bull forward and not ever even give a consideration to the possibility that something could happen that we don't want, that is also blackpilling. Because that is not the end of the world. No matter how the time is not going to stop. The world is not going to come to an end. If you have a child now, your child is going to continue growing up. And you're going to continue to it is going to be incumbent upon you to provide for your child, to give them a better world than whatever there is today. No matter where you're starting from, no matter how far you get knocked down, no matter how things go, it is still incumbent upon you, especially as a man, especially as a father, to provide for them and protect them, no matter the circumstances. So what's the hope for the best, plan for the worst? That would be like the trite way of saying it.
And also just the memes are fun. You know,
Mhm.
the energy's fun. This is all fun. That's good. It's good to have fun. In fact, I think that's kind of the thing that carries us to victory is like being fun. Don't you guys remember back in like 2016 when we all used to be able to have fun? Before all the school marms took over. Having fun is important, but also like kind of maintaining sobriety and discernment is also important. Because some of the things, as of right now, it's still small. Like, okay, the example I gave with like this whole Twitter interaction. I'm seeing more and more of that. Things like that. And I can give a few more examples, but the same feeling I had back in 2020 with COVID, where I started kind of like, okay, this is going in a weird direction. Like, okay, there was like maybe the first month and a half where everything was kind of up in the air. No one really knew what was going on. And then there was a moment, or maybe a series of moments, whatever, a period, where things started to go in a particular direction. And I think it was at that point where, you know, for many of us, we kind of were like, that's kind of a moment that broke a lot of us out of the matrix, if you weren't already. And I remember that feeling I had, and I didn't have any data points. Things hadn't gotten nearly as crazy as they ended up getting. But early on, I remember just getting a weird gut feeling about the direction things were going. And I was totally vindicated, you know, and the succeeding few years, like I lost friendships, you know, I'm not unique. This happened to everybody. Anyone who had their head screwed on right through COVID knows what I'm talking about. Almost lost my job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because I recognized that this was, you know, whatever's going on, this is demonic and I'm not playing ball. But that gut feeling, it was right then, and I was vindicated on it. And typically when I get a gut feeling, I'm not wrong. So all that is to say is like, I'm getting a weird gut feeling about some of the, like I said, it's still small and a lot of it's still just kind of like framed. There's a lot of memes, a lot of it's memeing, but some of it's not memeing. And I got a weird feeling that if like we're not aware and we're not sober and we're not careful, it could go in a weird direction. And then you guys are going to put me in a position where I have to defend the libs, and I don't want to do that. So don't put me in that position.
So, James Kirkpatrick quote tweeted a tweet from Political Polls, says national general electorate, Kamala Harris 47%, Donald Trump 46%. The polls, I don't really care about the polls. Really, they've been proven unreliable so many times now that to me they're just noise. He says, so he's one of the guys. There's been a few of these guys who are doing this that my instinct toward them at first was, okay, these guys are blackpilling. I'm just blocking them. I'm getting them off my radar. But for something has led me to not. Something has led me to just kind of keep an eye on them. One of them is Keith Woods. One of them is James Kirkpatrick. And there is I don't know, could be a 4D chess type of angle that they're taking here, where he says, all right, so at what point do we stop snickering and admit that this is happening and get to work? This is the particular point that he's making. Get to work. Don't take this for granted. Don't treat the outcome as already decided. And shout out Neo-Americana again. Curtis LeMay did nothing wrong. He says, the Democrats ran a dementia candidate from the basement without campaigning at all. So if you attribute magical powers to win elections to them, maybe they could do it on a ticket with the least popular candidate in modern history who's running on a cat lady platform. Am I confident Trump will win? No, because the Dems remain organized and capable of manufacturing all the ballots they need. The big question is, will they bother for Harris? And if they do, will they get caught? And those are big questions. Those are questions that I think we can have some say in. Republicans still prefer to turn a blind eye to the obvious potential for fraud on the part of the Democrats because they prefer the fiction that they can win fair and square. Well, they can, but not by keeping their eyes shut. I think Republicans need to get real that the Democrats are a blob-like elite party with a couple million people that actually form their base, and the rest of their coalition is held together by paper-thin patronage networks. Of course, they can't win a straight election. They have to buy votes with social programs and phony baloney jobs, and when that fails, there's ballot harvesting. This system wins because it's flexible. Whatever the Republicans muster, the Dems can stretch to match. Republicans need to stop telling themselves fairy tales. The Democrats didn't used to be like this, by the way. Not that long ago, they ran on platforms that were much stronger than the Republicans on some issues, tech being a notable one. But those days are over. They're 100% blob now, fully Saylorized. And as a writer, if the Republicans don't win this year, the party is probably over. The U.S. will be a single-party state, and the demographic transformation can easily be completed in 4 years. The stakes are high. There's no room for pleasant illusions. I'm grateful that so far the Kamala campaign seems determined to lose, however.
There's also that tweet I sent you the other day, Pedro Gonzalez. Like, there's a handful of people that, oh, you got it pulled up right there.
Yeah.
Is these, like people like Keith Woods or that's like the really like black pilled Jew poster guy, right?
Well, he's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, he's one of them. Yeah, right. Like, I think it's good. Like, okay, some of these guys I think I don't take very seriously. Like Pedro Gonzalez is one such person who ever since his simping for Ron DeSantis, I kind of lost credit. He kind of lost credibility in my eyes.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's still good. Just keep checking in on some of these people, even the ones who kind of grind your gears, or even the ones who you think are, kind of gay or whatever. Goonics. It's good to check in with them every now and then just to see, because they might be seeing something you're not.
Even Bill Mitchell has good insight sometimes, and that's who Pedro honestly reminds me the most of is Bill Mitchell, like the trajectory that he's gone on.
Yeah, and this is a great example. This tweet by Pedro.
She says Harris has raised $200 million in the first week of her campaign, with 66% of all donations coming from first-time donors. We showed the video that proved how much this is spoofed. Added more than 170,000 new volunteers to her campaign. Quote, this election will be very close and decided by a small number of voters in just a few states. This is all true. And you can't just block this stuff out. You can't just say, oh, that stuff's not true and it's all taken care of and don't worry about it.
Right. And you can say some of that might be be bullshit. And obviously there's some things going on there that are not above board.
Right.
Like there's obviously some sketchy shit going on behind the scenes.
Which
true.
The autists, this is your space.
Yes. Just because there's some okay, I think you're missing the forest for the trees, because I see people arguing with that. So he's got like his 3 points there or whatever. And I see people arguing and disputing like the validity of those points. And it's like, yeah. You're getting bogged down in autism. So stop focusing on that. Obviously that there's like sketchy shit going on behind the scenes. The point is that this happened one way or another. Don't hand wave it away because don't hand wave it away or dismiss it, because that could bite you in the ass.
He says, this stuff is so weird to me because it would be objectively smarter to take it at face value and plan accordingly. The alternative is to lose and console yourself by saying it was stolen. Right. This guy said, this is likely false. Democrats regularly have large donors that run smaller amounts through the names of registered voters. Often those voters have no idea they made any campaign contributions.
This is a guy who's missing the point.
Completely missing the point. The point, it doesn't matter whether they're actually, if you see this as false, then go dig into all of this. Go put this narrative together showing what's happening here and push it out there and get it amplified to whatever extent that you can. Send me something. If you go do that work, send it to me and I'll amplify it. We have the ability to actually take these things seriously and actually use them in a political way, but it requires not just you can't be doing that. It's laundered money. Yes, of course it is. This is how it works. Dem cheating will be more than ever. Yes, more important than ever. We know that Democrats launder illegal donations through ActBlue donors who don't know they donated. This sort of thing. Don't argue with it. Amplify it. Why are conservatives so insistent on not taking the other side seriously? Psychobabble, nothing true in what you posted. Now, obviously, he's dunking on which is kind of Pedro's thing, where he dunks on the plebs and conveniently ignores the not plebs. He said, this is a much better take from Adam Johnston at Conquest Theory, a powerful mutual of mine. He said, Harris will center her campaign around making history and protecting democracy. And for most Democrats, this will spark massive turnout. Republicans need to mobilize their voters. He said, someone else said, has this all been verified? The first blah, 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 blah. Cannot stress this enough. It does not matter. James O'Keefe videos aren't going to save you. There, I disagree with that a little bit. Casting doubt on this report's details won't help you. Money is money. Ground game is ground game. Plan accordingly or lose. This is another where I think Pedro is falling into the dialectic, arguing for one side or the other. Both are necessary. You need the James O'Keefe videos, signal boosting all this corruption so that people like Elon can signal boost it and it can create a justification for institutional mobility. And you also need to take this seriously that winning a corrupt, rigged election is still winning an election. There's no way that this just, that the no matter your most optimistic viewpoint that's realistic about the upcoming election, should not be that, oh, it's just everyone's just going to lay down and just accept the result. Oh, Trump won, and they're just going to, and then move on with their
or
lives.
that anybody's going to come at this like honestly.
Right. It's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight that's probably going to go into the courts, and the loudest part of public opinion is what's going to move the day. I wouldn't underestimate the fact that the weight of the interests that are throwing in behind Trump are going to have the ability to turn a court. But that's going to require that this whole mobilized right-wing coalition has their head screwed on straight and is going about this like intelligent adults who are seriously grappling with the realities of the situation. All right, I'm tired of Pedro. I've got a couple of other stories here as we round it off. Here's a win. Attorney General Ken Paxton. He is a friend. He says, breaking news, we have secured a $1.4 billion settlement with Meta to stop the company's practice of capturing and using the personal biometric data of millions of Texans without the authorization required by law. This settlement is the largest ever obtained from an action brought by a single state and the largest privacy settlement an attorney general has ever obtained. This serves as a warning to any companies engaged in practices that violate Texans' privacy rights. So there's a whole letter here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But so a $1.4 billion settlement with Meta. So there is a lot of money. That's a lot of fucking money. This is a massive political win. And this sort of win isn't possible simply because you have, the attorney general is just a real good worker and everything. There's a lot of corporate and commercial weight behind something like this happening. And I think if you're realistic about the state of the degradation and corruption of the system, you would recognize this. Even when it works in our favor, this is the product of major banking and commercial interests who they've made their presence known on the scene, and it's leaning the direction that a judge is going to decide on a case like this.
What if all the states just did the same thing right now? And just tanked Meta.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Cool?
I see. I don't think that's completely out of the conversation. But that's a post January 20 sort of thing. Relatedly, Raw Alerts tweets I just realized Raw S Alerts, Raw's Alerts, Raw Alerts,
Ross Alerts.
Ross Alerts, Raw's Alerts, Raw's Global. I wonder what Raw's is supposed to. It's anyways. Facebook has officially admitted that it wrongly censored the historic, iconic photo of former President Trump pumping his fist with his ear bleeding after the tragic event that occurred during his rally in Pennsylvania, saying this was an error. Orrin McIntyre says state-level GOP officers should be launching investigations into these tech companies based on election interference immediately. Yep. 100%. The big ones, Meta, Google, Apple, those are the ones who are have not clearly come out. They're still very clearly regime operations and probably always will be. But if you want something to do, if you're like, oh, what do? I just got a little Twitter account. Start calling your representatives. If you're in a red state, start calling your GOP representatives and pressuring them on this. Push them. You've now got the precedent with Ken Paxton, and there is blood in the water in Silicon Valley. You've got a lot of willpower among the tech elites to use political means to take out their competition, because these all basically boil down to the same fight, essentially. I don't want to get into that now. Something about secret security snipers. We'll save that for another one because we're almost at the end of the show for today. I just want to give you guys a little tease. We introduced some of you to Balaji Srinivasan a couple of last week. His interview on the Moment of Zen podcast, and his book, The Network State, is very, very good. He's got, if you go to thenetworkstate.com, I think this is, if you want to understand where things are heading, at least in a broad sense, this is a great place to start. So he says, technology has enabled us to start new companies, new communities, and new currencies, but can we use it to start new cities or even new countries? This book explains how we build the successor to the nation state, a concept we call the network state. So we'll read just a little bit of this here. It's a kind of an interesting way to put a book out. He has it broken up into these little chapters, and he's got images and stuff with it, and then has him reading it, and then the text itself. And it's not him reading it, it's Balaji AI reading it. Thanks, Taylor Brown. He says, join the Discord, kingpill.com. We are winning, we will win, and all will be well. Are you the kind of person who skims the beginning just to see whether to read the entire thing? You're in luck. We've prepared one sentence, one image, 1,000-word, and one essay summaries of the concepts behind startup societies and network states. Just click those links if you're impatient. And of course, for the full experience, you can read it one page at a time. Speaking of pages, every section of this book is online and shareable as an individual web page. For example, the URL to this section is thenetworkstate.com/preamble. This allows you to link directly to any bit of the book for discussion. Moreover, unlike the typical book that's frozen in time, think of this as a dynamic book app that gets continuously updated. You can see the latest version online, or you can follow the instructions at thenetworkstate.com/kindle. GIF to get the latest version on your Kindle. When reading it, think of this work as a toolbox, not a manifesto. You don't need to agree with all of it to get something out of it. We've structured it in modular form for that reason. Chapter 1 is an overview of the ideas. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 present an analysis that leads to a concerning forecast for the near future, the problem of American anarchy and Chinese control. And Chapter 5 presents our proposed solution for maintaining liberal values in an illiberal world, startup societies, and network states. If you're a partisan of the U.S. establishment or the CCP, you may not agree with our problem statement at all. If you're an orthodox Bitcoin maximalist, you likely won't agree with every aspect of our proposed solution. And if you're coming in from another school of thought, you may only agree with parts of the problem or solution as we framed them. Nevertheless, we believe there's enough flexibility in the idea of the network state that you could customize it and make it your own. But what exactly is a network state? So here's the network state in one sentence. A network state is a highly aligned online community with a capacity for collective action that crowdfunds territory around the world and eventually gains diplomatic recognition from pre-existing states. When we think of a nation state, we immediately think of the lands, but when we think of a network state, we should instantly think of the minds. That is, if the nation state system starts with the map of the globe and assigns each patch of land to a single state, the network state system starts with the 7+ billion humans of the world and attracts each mind to one or more networks. Here's a more complex definition that extends that concept and preemptively covers many edge cases. A network state is a social network with a moral innovation, a sense of national consciousness, a recognized founder, a capacity for collective action, an in-person level of civility, an integrated cryptocurrency, a consensual government limited by a social smart contract, an archipelago of crowd-funded physical territories, a virtual capital, and an on-chain census that proves a large enough population, income, and real estate footprint to attain a measure of diplomatic recognition. Okay, that's a mouthful. It's lengthy because there are many internet phenomena that share some but not all of the properties of a network state. For example, neither Bitcoin nor Facebook nor a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization, is a network state because each lacks certain qualities, like diplomatic recognition, which are core to anything we'd think of as the next version of the nation state. If you want to skip ahead, we expand on each part of the definition in Chapter 5, but it'll make more sense if you read the text all the way through. For what it's worth, the technical definition of a nation state is similarly multi-clausal because it needs to exclude things you don't typically think about, like stateless nations. The next section is the network state in one image. So here is the image. There. A picture helps. The dashboard above shows what a million-person network state looks like on the map. Specifically, it depicts a network state with 1.7 million people, more than $157 billion in annual income, and a 136 million square meter footprint. The first thing we notice is that a network state isn't physically centralized like a nation state, nor limited in scale like a city state. It's geographically decentralized and connected by the internet. The second thing we see is that you could feasibly start this kind of country from your computer. That is, just as Facebook grew from one person's laptop, a million-person network state that owns a global archipelago of physical territory could start as a one-person startup society, as shown in this GIF. And we are going to... Oops. So you can see how the network state could be born and then grow digitally. The third thing we see is how central the real-time census is to the network state. The dashboard shown combines concepts from coins, companies, and countries to focus a society on growth in people, annual income, and real estate footprint. Continued growth is a continuous plebiscite, a vote of confidence by the people inside who remain and those outside who apply. Roughly speaking, a successful network state is one that attracts aligned immigrants, and an unsuccessful network state is one that loses them. That doesn't mean each network state must grow to infinity or that all states need accept the same kind of person, but that the community of network states as a whole is focused on building admirable societies that people want to join. Different states will focus on different metrics. Imagine a network state premised on improving its citizens' overall life expectancy, or one aimed at provably right-shifting the income distribution for all. You get what you measure. So we're going to leave it there for now. I would encourage you guys to go read this yourselves, because I believe as we are working on building the future ourselves, that these guys are on the cutting edge. There's a direct tie-in from Bology to the whole PayPal mafia thing, which gets into all the Free Cities Foundation and Peter Thiel and the seasteading and then things like Prospera and then Bitcoin, and then El Salvador with Bitcoin. This is what the future is going to look like. It's in this direction.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'll have to think about it more because there's some things about that kind of remind me of Patchwork.
Yeah, it's similar.
I don't know that. Like I understand they're talking about like owning archipelagos of real estate and land and stuff like that, but it seems to me that this is kind of not taking into consideration, or maybe it's just trying to transcend the problem of ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my.
Oh yeah. Obviously, this is casting the vision. This is like you give an example of what the ultimate thing would look like, and then directionally, this is where we're headed. Because inevitably, what's going to happen is that digital space is going to be more organized. Digital space being theoretically infinite gives the human species the ability to theoretically explore infinitely. And so then there's going to be all sorts of different ways that digital space is going to be arranged. But what really is going to matter is the extent to which digital space and physical space relate to one another.
Right. So
the way I expect things to go is sort of a hybridization of the two. But I think that you're going to get physical space is going to be more and more governed locally. So you're going to get more prominent local. I almost said governance. I have to say governance. Sorry, Semiagog. You're going to get more and more local governance that's directly applicable to.
You keep mentioning the Semiagog. I must have missed an episode or something. What is this referencing?
There was a tweet thread that I read on the show where he talked about governance, that it's like a weasel word, that it's not a thing, but it's like a lib weasel word.
Okay, that's fine. We'll use it.
So you're gonna get much more local governance in the physical domain, where as I'm trying to remember who I was listening to the other day was talking about most likely what we're going to see over the next 50 to 100 years is the federal government is going to become more and more formal, but less and less impactful, less and less powerful. Because local domains are going to grow up to govern themselves more directly, but then you're going to have local governance in the physical domain, and then you're going to have more transnational networks of people where people will travel from place to place as citizens of a digital network. and that digital network has a reputation and it maybe has its own currency, it has its own passports, it has diplomatic recognition, and they're a representative of that, even though the territory that digital identity occupies is not necessarily geographically contiguous. So it's not going to be like one day we just wake up and all of a sudden, physical geography doesn't matter anymore. This is clearly not the case. But, especially if you start thinking about, interplanetary travel or something like that, then are you a citizen? Is your identity, your citizenship related to Earth, or is it Mars or whatever? Like these sorts of things, as people are reasoning through, sorting out how all of that works, we're going to see innovations in citizenship, what citizenship even means, which I think is part of what the complete breakdown of it necessarily precedes. We've had citizenship has become just like a nonsense concept that it's anybody is eligible for it. Anyone everyone is an American if they want to be, this completely broken down the notion of citizenship, which means that it's now become sort of a hollowed out concept that's ready to become a vehicle for someone who wants to define it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just past the 3-hour mark, so I'm going to peace out. Thank you, Cocaine Weird, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Real King Pilled.
And thank you to all you guys in the chat. I've appreciated the entertainment. We will be back tomorrow, hopefully a little bit earlier. Got some more stuff that I pushed out of the stack today that we should get into tomorrow. And do continue sending me stuff. Those of you who DM me on Twitter or in the Discord, tag me and stuff. Please keep doing that. Speaking of the Discord, you should go join. It's a good place. We got some good people in there. Kingpill.com is the way to sign up. And we had a great schizo stream on Friday night. We talked about teleportation, and then we talked about the Kandahar Giant, and we got into some really, really funky stuff. We watched a video about a guy theorizing about this mountain in Italy, theorizing that it's actually the fossilized remains of a giant elephant. And it's like, I don't know, 1,500 yards across or something like that. It was pretty far out. So schizo streams are fun. We do those every Friday night. And any membership will get you, any membership tier will get you access to that. So if you'd like to support the show, keep us doing what we're doing, then go to kingpill.com, join the Kingpill Discord, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Later.